I would want to just share a few statistics with the board. I could list almost every school. It would take a while, so I've just picked a few. The district office did its food drive, and we were able to secure 6,200 pounds of food for Storehouse West. The Joe Harris Elementary donation drive donated 800 coloring books, boxes of markers, and boxes of crayons to the UNM Children's Hospital. Puesto del Sol had a donation drive, and they had 1,000 items, including hats, socks, gloves, toothpaste, toothbrushes, hygiene kits, bars of soap, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, lotion, toilet paper to the New Mexico Dreams Center. And then Enchanted Hills, for example, had a food drive, and they fed 15 families in Rio Rancho for Thanksgiving the entire meal. There's just a few things, but our schools have always in this district been very proud of giving back to the community. They always wanted to be a district where we didn't always have our hand out, wanting things for the district without turning around and giving back to our community as well. Okay. We also have had carolers from several of our schools who have been throughout the entire Rio Rancho community, bringing their holiday cheer. And Colinas del Norte, their 4th and 5th graders, came to the district office, and I will tell you, it was just cute and cute. I just can't say that. We all enjoyed it. It just lifted your spirits, and it was a wonderful presentation. They've also been out of the community. Lincoln, for example, has been at Chalmers Ford. Mountain View has been at Sandoval County business offices. And Rio Rancho High School Choir has been at assisted living facilities. So again, it's wonderful to get out and show the wonderful things our students can do, and their willingness to share with the larger community who supports us in so many ways. This evening, we welcome Argent Duncan. She is the editor of the Rio Rancho Observer, and she will be recognizing Rio Rancho Public School staff who are recipients for this year's Reader's Choice Awards. I'm sure you know what that is. That's where the community has a chance to share who they think is deserving of awards in a variety of categories. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank the Observer for all that they do, not only to support our schools, but our general community. And we certainly are glad they're in this community, and we appreciate them and all that they do. We will also have principals Dana Petro here from Puesto del Sol, and Kurt DeSoto, who is in a rather interesting, colorful jacket I think you will enjoy. They will also be able to speak to the honorees and why they have been recognized. So that's thank you all for being here. The folks that are actually being commended this evening, her favorite teacher was Elizabeth Lynn at Puesto del Sol, and Natalie Cundiff was the runner-up, and she is from Sandia Vista Elementary School. Impactful community activist, Teresa Romo, who is also from Puesto del Sol, and then the favorite local sports team, and this year it was Cleveland High School girls softball team and Coach Angel Castillo. So congratulations to all of you. There are 2 reports that are planned for this evening. The first report will be presented by Scott Leppelman, the Executive Director for Information Technology, and he's going to be talking about an overview of his department, including staffing, operational excellence, safety and wellness, engagement and innovation, challenges that they're facing, as well as some of their future plans. And when you see an asterisk by the side of a bullet, it means that's directly aligned to the strategic plan. And then the second report will be by Melanie Archibek, Executive Director for Facilities. She will be addressing their departmental overview, including their organizational chart and staffing. A little bit about utilities, and as you know, just like in our personal lives, utilities is always a big unknown, and it certainly can have a really big impact on budgets. It's true for the school district as well. Engagement and innovation, safety and wellness, operational excellence, some of the new things that they're doing this year some of the highlights of their department and then some of the challenges they are facing and where they see opportunities to improve. So 2 really good reports. We're, I think, two more away from finishing up. Our goal was to have them all done before the holidays, but we've had some bumps along the way, but we should finish them up in January. And the board had asked for those to be done prior to that time, so they would have a kind of an understanding of the departments, the challenges they were facing as they move into the budget process. We are right around the corner from the legislative session, and this will be, as I think most of you know, a 60-day session. And in the 60-day session is really when the state tackles most of the financial issues for the state. 30-day sessions aren't supposed to be about financial things. That doesn't always happen, and it certainly didn't happen last year. But this is really when they take an in-depth look at the budget and other things related to public schools. Chris Balzano, who is our government relations person, will attend this evening. Beth is not here. She's a little under the weather. The purpose will be to hear from all of you regarding the legislative priorities, and would share with everyone that's present. The Board of Education has already sent to the New Mexico School Boards Association a set of resolutions for the upcoming legislative session. So that's the group that often speaks for legislative changes for school boards in New Mexico. So they've already gone through that process. We will also be meeting with our delegation members prior to the start of the session. You will also be asked to look at capital outlay requests. Melanie Archibald will present a list of capital outlay requests for the board to consider this evening. Certainly, if these are approved by the board, these requests will be shared with our delegation for their review. And of course, we always welcome from them recommendations or suggestions that they may have related to those requests. As the delegation always asks that I share, and I do every year, they receive so many competing requests for appropriations, and we certainly do appreciate their consideration of our requests, and we do understand they have a lot of difficult decisions to be made when they have to prioritize projects. And we certainly do appreciate the strong support given to our schools and community by our delegation over the years. They have funded many worthwhile projects over the last several years, particularly those that would keep our schools safer, provide for greater security for staff and students. And I'll answer any questions or if you have any comments.
Thank you so much. Dr. Cleveland, do we have any questions or comments on the side over here? Okay.
I'll reserve my comments for the report. Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll go to our next item to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
As Board Member Jeff Morgan, I make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Gary Tripp, I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeffrey Morgan and a second by Gary Tripp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. And I just want to apologize. So I was sick now 2 weeks ago, but I'm still trying to get over it. So if you hear me with coughing and such, I promise I'm not sick anymore, but I did have a pretty bad flu 2 weeks ago. So moving to our public comment, we actually do not have any public comment tonight. Nothing came in, right? Okay. So we have no public comment tonight. For those who would like to give public comment, we always encourage you to come in person into our boardroom and give public comment, but you're also welcome to sign or to go to our board page, and there's a form there that you can fill out, and we summarize those comments that come through our board page, but we'd love to hear from the public on anything that they would desire to talk to us about. Okay, so for our next item, we'll go into commendations. And so we have one commendation tonight, as Dr. Cleveland said. This is our Rio Rancho Observer Reader's Choice Awards recipients. And presenting will be Arjun Duncan from the Rio Rancho Observer, Dana Petro, our principal at Puesta del Sol Elementary, and Kirk DeSoto, principal at Sandia Vista Elementary. And I'll have you go ahead and invite however you would like to do it, all of the recipients that you would like to.
I'm Arjun Duncan with the Observer, and these commendations are from our Reader's Choice Awards. So we didn't make this decision. It was a community online vote. And I'll just ask each person to come up. I believe one's online, and they can speak if they won't, or they can just take the framed certificate. The favorite teacher, Elizabeth Lind, I believe is the one online. Does she want to speak?
I'm not Liz Lynn, but she's over there online. Thank you. I'll take it for her. My name's Dana Petro. And can I just say a little something for her? So good evening, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. I just wanted to say a little bit about Liz. She is our music teacher at Puesta. And I know why they picked her. She, as you know, we went through HVAC construction. And during that time, Liz had to become a music teacher on the fly and on a cart. And what I mean by that is she, during COVID, during HVAC, was not able to have her own space. And so she sang and took her kids outside to sing, to learn music, to dance. And she did it on the grass, on the sidewalk, on the playground, wherever, and never once complained. And I mean, even when it was snowing, she wanted to make sure her kids had music. And then since that time, she's had her glorious classroom back. And I have never once had a student say, I don't want to go to music. She is highly engaging and she has enthusiasm for music. So it's no wonder that she's chosen for this award. So we're really proud of you, Liz. Can we see her at all? Or... Yay.
Liz, if you want to talk, you can. If you want to say something,
Can you hear me okay?
we can.
Okay, it has been such a pleasure to be at Puesta and engage with our students in the music learning. They have such a thirst for music, and I am so appreciative for receiving this award and being supported by my school and the district. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next one is.
The next one, runner-up for favorite teacher, is Natalie Cundiff.
Thank you. I didn't plan anything to say, but this is such an honor. I'm so grateful to be here in Rio Rancho. I moved here last summer from Texas and have just felt so at home here at Rio Rancho and at Sandia Vista. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to give her principal a chance
Yeah,
to
if
say
Kurt
something
would
as
like
well,
to
if that'd be okay. And besides that, I want to see your
We
jacket.
really want to see your jacket.
Quite a jacket.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Cleveland, Madam President, members of the board. I've had the privilege of knowing Mrs. Cundiff just very shortly because I joined Sandia Vista in July. But in that time, I have seen her with her students on a daily basis and then also after school in our after school programs because she has volunteered graciously to lead a choir after school and they're doing a phenomenal job. I had also had the privilege of meeting her parents for our kindergarten performance that we had a couple of weeks ago that you wouldn't believe that the entire kindergarten community at our school showed up and they filled our gym and our cafeteria. And then her parents and husband were able to make it as well. But I let them know, I said, you know, it's really interesting to see an individual be able to command a presence with 5-year-olds. And man, those 5-year-olds, they were able to stay on cue and knew what they were supposed to be doing through the entire performance. They did not miss a beat. And one thing coming from a fine arts background, I've told her, I said, you know, Mrs. Cundiff, I'm really impressed with the way that you instruct kids and that you're able to give them visual cues for vocalizations. And it's phenomenal being able to see her in action. And so I'm excited as well as with our community that she's received this award because she truly does deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next winner is Teresa Romo, impactful community activist.
Good evening and thank you. I'm not good with talking, so I'm just going to say thank you.
Thank you.
I'll do it for her. So Teresa Romo is a third grade teacher at Puesta, but I call her our sort of community activist engineer. And it comes from, gonna make her cry, and me too, deep. So she started Isaiah's backpack, and Isaiah was her child, who was a Puesta student who passed away when he was in first grade. And so she started the Isaiah backpack program. And what that is, as you've heard in other schools that have them, on every Friday, a backpack goes home filled with food for a family. And then the backpack comes back on a Monday. It's refilled for the next Friday, goes home on a Friday, comes back on Monday, all throughout the year. And you would think that would be enough, but for Teresa, it's not. She runs our food pantry and our clothing closet too, and provides not only monthly, are we doing monthly or more than monthly now? Probably
It's every Tuesday.
every
Every other Tuesday.
Oh, I was going to say every other Tuesday, at least 40 families, sometimes more, who come to our school and get meals for 2 weeks, including holiday meals. And so her and a team of people here at Puesta also serve the community. And she is so proud and never tires of it. So we are so thankful for everything that you do. So good job.
Last, but of course not least, favorite local sports team, Cleveland Storm softball.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland, Madam President, members of the board. I wanted to bring up our young ladies, our seniors from our team, Alex Pobacek, Layla Dixon, and Ryan Herman. This is pretty exciting because, we always talk about representing our school and representing our family the best way that we possibly can. And if you've never been to a Cleveland High School softball game, it's pretty exciting. It's fun. There's so many people to thank, so many people that have a job in our program that it's exciting, from the music to the cheers to everything that we do. So they represent themselves well in the community and definitely Rio Rancho Public Schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I just want to congratulate everyone and thank you for all the hard work that you do, but particularly the really big heart that you have, and appreciate it. And I guess at this time of year, we're even more cognizant of the importance of that. So thank you all and congratulations. And it's kind of neat that it's coming from the community and that they saw fit to spend their time and effort to make sure that people knew the wonderful things that you do. So again, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Arjun, I'd like to say thank you to you and the Observer for your efforts to keep community spirit up and identifying folks who really deserve to be identified. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our girls softball team, you kind of get up here and you probably get recognized a lot at school, but they could have picked in the community, they could have picked any team and they picked you. And so that is really, really saying something about you and your team and that they see you. And so congratulations to all of you. And then to all of our teachers, I think sometimes you can feel like you get lost a little bit in when you're teaching and you have so many kids and there's just chaos sometimes. This is just awesome to know that your community sees you and we see you. And I'm so grateful once again, like Dr. Cleveland was saying, and Noreen Scott, for our Observer and for all these different programs that take some time to recognize our teachers. I wish we could do more. I wish there was more that we could do, but we're so, so grateful to have you in our district. And thank you to the principals too for coming out tonight and to share those things with us. I got a little teary for Teresa. I'm grateful to hear a little bit of her story, and it's very, very sweet, all the things that she's willing to do for kids in our district. So thank you so much. Anyone else from the board want to? Good. Okay. Go ahead.
Just a quick mention to the Cleveland girls. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for you and the girls that just graduated from you. You've taken that program to new heights, but it's it's nice to be around class act teenagers, and thank you for all you do over there. Coach Castillo, thank you running a first class operation. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good. Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Okay. I always have a hard time leaving commendations because they're just such a nice, nice place to be in the meeting. We'll move now into our reports for the evening. We'll start with our first report, which is a department update on information technology. Scott Lippelman, our Executive Director of Information Technology, will be presenting.
President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, thanks for having me. I'm really excited actually to present this and show you guys the status of our department, what we've been doing for the past 6 months, and some of the initiatives we put into place and what those results have been. And so, before I took this position, I saw that there might be some changes that we could do to better support our students and our staff. And I've worked with Mr. Baker. And so after I interviewed and got hired for this position, Mr. Baker helped me to do some of these restructures, and I'm really excited to show you what those have been and what the results have been. And we've asked our staff and our students to try to figure out what the impact that we've had. And so I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to move a little quick to try to keep to the 15 minutes. So forgive me if I talk a little fast. Next slide, please. Okay, so IT's job really is to support our students and our staff. That's our end goal, and we do many things to get there, but that's our job. And so we do that through planning, designing, implementing operational technology district-wide. And that goes from the classroom all the way to the network, from wireless access points to the way we support our staff and our students. And so these 5 teams do an excellent job of doing that. And that would be our network, our data, project management, telecom, and support teams. And I'll get into those in more detail as we go through it. Next slide, please. And so our staff is for sure our strongest asset in IT. And we encourage continuous improvement. We have excellent customer service, and we just have some friendly people, as you've met Tyler over here. And so we encourage continuous improvement. We encourage certifications. Our team has 37 certs in total. And almost everybody on the team has at least one certification. We pay for that training. We pay for them to go get the certifications. And then I've worked with HR and Mike Chavez to, over the past several years actually, to put in a good program to pay our staff to maintain these certifications. And so as we've done that, we've increased the number of certs that we have, we've increased our education, and we've really created some excitement for the team to learn. And these certifications are really valuable. We do a lot ranging from network to repairing computers to a wide variety of items. We even have an electrician on our team. And so that knowledge and skill set is super important for us to maintain just a quality staff and a quality environment for our staff and our students. Next slide, please. I also want to add that during COVID, our teams really spent a lot of time just supporting our parents and our students. And the network team in particular had things ready to go. So when people went home and we were overnight, hey, we're working from home, our computers already connected to our local network. We had access to everything that you normally need access to. And we were able to basically make that transition overnight. And so I'm really proud of those teams to do that. We had technicians delivering modems to some of our staff, or not staff, our students. That was incredible to do that and to provide that access to our staff and our students. We had provided T-Mobile hotspots. And so we have staff members that really shined over COVID and really did a lot. And that goes from our IT members all the way to the ed techs, people in the schools. We had incredible support getting that to our students and making sure they had the access they needed. And that was great during tough times. So kudos to our staff. They've really done an excellent job. And so, we couldn't have operational excellence without great staff. And so I want to give you a quick overview of what our support staff looks like. We have a service desk now, which is new, and I'll get into that. And then we have our field technicians. And this is just a quick layout of how we support our staff. We have 3 tiers. And so as a ticket comes through, it goes to our service desk first. Our service desk tries to resolve it quickly. If they can't, they route it to the right team. And if they route it to our field techs, which are in the schools, or the ed techs, which spend a lot of time doing training in the classroom. And from there, it'll go to our higher level teams like network, data, telecom, depending on what the issue is. Next slide, please. And so this brings me to the service desk, and this is one of the big improvements we've made in the past 6 months. We added the service desk. It's run by Tyler over here, and he does an excellent job. And the goal of the service desk really was to improve response time, customer service, and consistency. And we have sometimes a variety of service across the district. And what we're trying to do is optimize that to make sure it's consistent and it's the same. So everybody has the same experience when they're getting support from IT. And the goal of that service desk was try to offload the amount of work from people in the schools, for ed techs, for our technicians, so they can focus on higher priority, more complex items or training in the classroom. It's really just to be able to better operate in that system and become the hub. And so the way we've executed that is we have 3 people on that team. We have a chat service. We have a phone service. So now people can call and get somebody immediately on the phone if they need help. They can remote in and solve the issue. And then that team really is spending a lot of time documenting, adding self-help articles so our staff can jump on and say, hey, I know how to fix this myself. And so we've had a huge request for that, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. Next slide, please. And so here's some of the results that we've seen this year with the service desk. The top graph you see here is the industry standard response time for education when somebody's doing putting in a ticket. The average industry takes 12 hours to even respond to that ticket, so the average school district, and 35 hours to resolve it. And that goes for small school districts, large school districts. That's where the average is. Rio Rancho, as you can see, in the 21-22 school year, our response was already way below that at 6.5 hours and 7.5 hours resolution. And so our goal was to bring this down even further and to reduce the workload in the schools. So we've looked at our numbers this year and we've averaged them out. And this year we've been able to do an average response of 4.5 hours and 5 hours. So we brought down our resolution by 2.5 hours with the service desk. And I'll add that we also added a technician manager who is a tech in the schools coordinating with our technicians, and our technicians report directly to this individual now. Before it was our director, and we felt that we needed somebody in the school with them, going to the places with that technical experience and knowledge, coordinating that team. And so that's something we've done alongside this service desk, and his name is Mark. He's done an excellent job in getting started with that. Next slide, please. And, I want to add actually real quick, something that stood out to me under the Operation Excellence part of the strategic plan was create systems that increase transparency and encourage timely and accurate communication to all staff throughout the district. And I feel like the service desk really embodies this. The service desk can help us to identify issues as they happen in real time. We notify our staff and we update our staff as it's being solved or fixed. And then we're right there to engage with our staff, parents and students. So people can call them up, can chat them, and it's great to be able to instantly get in touch with IT. Before, when it's just a ticket system, which is great and helpful and a great tool to use, but now we've got that engagement and that personal engagement that we can have where people feel like, hey, I can talk to IT now. I can ask them questions. I can figure out my issue on the phone. Some people need that, and it's really helpful for our staff. So we give our staff a wide variety of ability to access IT now. And so very recently, we sent out a staff survey to try to get an idea of what our staff's saying about the service desk changes and just general satisfaction for IT. We got really good participation. I'd say almost half of our staff probably participated in this. And so we've got some pretty good results and some good feedback as well, some constructive feedback that we want to take action on. But generally speaking, well over 90% of our staff's either very satisfied or satisfied. And so we're really happy with those results. And then we asked people, hey, if you have issues or if you have problems, please let us know what those are. And we've aggregated that information. I'll get to that in a little bit. Next slide, please. And so to dig in a little bit deeper, we also asked them if the service desk has been a beneficial thing for them. So I want to make sure we're not instigating or creating additional problems, that we're actually solving the problems we're seeking to solve. And we're seeing that the majority of our staff, almost 60, 70%, think it's for the better or about the same. And then we're taking the feedback from those that don't and trying to make any changes or process changes we need based off of that information. So before I get into that, I want to cover, next slide, please. I put up a few comments for our service desk and for our field technicians that we get through our tech, our help desk. And I'm not going to read through all these, but there's a lot of nice people out there that have nice things to say about them. I'm sure it makes them feel good. Next slide, please. So, I know you have copies of this. I encourage you to read through it and just take a look. We have some really good staff. Next slide, please. And so in our survey, the main thing we identified that our staff want is the ability to solve some of their own problems quickly. And so what we've done is we've put a bunch of self-help articles out on our knowledge base. We encourage people to read them. We're trying to let our staff know they're there. And then they've also asked for the ability to reset their own students' passwords. So we've actually implemented a system that allows middle and high school to do that. And we're implementing more systems to try to eliminate passwords being an issue in the first place. And the other thing is they want the ability to install their own software. So we're working on a system that helps them to do that. We still have to vet the software for security reasons, but we want the end user to be able to do that installation easily without having to go through IT. Just click of a button, get that software installed, and know it's available. So we've been trying to work with those users that, and it's a large number of users that want those tools, and try to improve those systems for our users. Next slide, please. And so the other side of IT, which really focuses on system operations and projects, would be our network, data, telecom, and project management teams. And they're very heavily involved in the schools, getting network devices changed out, access points, improving performance, improving security. And I listed a few of our upcoming projects up here, and they range from cabling to intercom, networking. CTE is a big one. Our data team is working right now on a large migration for finance and HR. We're moving our Alio system to a program called School ERP. That's a huge, pretty much year-long project. So that's a big one. There's a lot of coordination there. And many of these projects we work with federal funding on. So the feds give us the ability to file for a program called E-rate, and that gives us 60% reimbursement on a lot of our projects. So a lot of our network-oriented projects, we can get a 60% discount on. And so that's a huge process. There's a lot of work involved in getting that done. But our director, Lee, over the years has done an excellent job bringing in that money and saving money really for the district, but also the taxpayer, because that allows us to take our bonds and go a lot further with our bond money, purchase a lot more equipment when we really would need 60% more money to do that. We're able to do it with less. Something else Lee did over COVID was he applied for a federal program called ECF funding. And that gave us $1.3 million to purchase Chromebooks. So we got 8,000 Chromebooks during that time, which was critical because most of our Chromebooks, or half of them, were getting pretty close to an end of life date. And we were looking for funding to make that happen. So that was a huge thing. And utilizing that funding, that federal funding, is critical for us. If we didn't have it, it would be much more difficult to implement technology the way we have. So next slide, please. And so this is just a snippet of Rio Rancho High School, just to show you some of the projects we do in the schools. We have a spreadsheet like this for every single school. James Cleveland is our project manager, and he does an excellent job coordinating these with all of our teams. An absolutely critical position for us. One of the big projects recently was the body camera. We put ports in the schools to facilitate these body cameras that we have on our security staff. And I've worked very closely with Sal to make that happen. And we're really excited to be able to help security, better protect our students and our staff. So, next slide, please. And so our network team focuses very heavily on cybersecurity. And, for safety and wellness, IT is, we're we take it very seriously. It's our responsibility, really, to protect our student data, to protect our student information, keep them safe on the web, prevent us from having an intrusion like malware or ransomware. And so we take those things very seriously, because if we were to get an intrusion, we could be down for days, for weeks. That could have a significant impact on education, the district, finances, liability. And so we do a lot to take these things seriously. Next slide, please. So this is a little snippet. I pulled a 30-day log off of our firewall, just to give you an example of what we see monthly. And so monthly, we see about 27,000 attempted threats on our network or on our firewall. And so it's just a little snippet, but just shows you the scale of what we see. There's automated bots out there. There's a lot of systems out there constantly trying to get into systems. So we spend a lot of time trying to be vigilant on this. Next slide, please. And so here's some of the things we're doing to try to be preventative. And we've done some of these recently. One is to implement a security awareness program. And this program sends out 5-minute videos weekly to all of our staff. And they're just videos on how to be preventative, how to protect yourself, how to protect the district from being attacked from or getting hit with a ransomware attack. Data shows that about 90% of attacks on any organization come through the user, and they come through email. And so what typically happens is a fake phishing email comes in that looks like something real. Somebody clicks on it, credentials, or downloads something. And before you know it, you've got a serious issue. And so our goal is to make sure our staff are aware of how serious it would be if we were hit. They need to be vigilant about it. We're always sending out emails when we see something weird. We encourage people to send us emails that they see that are suspicious. We also do yearly pen tests, and a pen test is when we bring in a third-party company to basically attack our network, come in and try to hack it. We give them access that people would normally have to just come in and just see what they can do. And the goal there is to really do our due diligence and make sure there's not something we've missed. And then they'll tell us what those problems are, and then we'll solve them. And next year we'll do the same thing. And we're actually in the process of going through one right now. It's a lot of work, but it's interesting and it's fascinating. We've also done endpoint protection, which is like antivirus, but it's a lot more advanced. It detects behavioral threats and behavioral changes, and then it notifies you and stops those things. We do regular best practice assessments on all of our systems, which is basically we go through our firewalls with our systems. We make sure the configurations are good. And then one thing we've done recently is some DDoS prevention tools. And some of you may remember a few years back, we had a distributed denial of service attack. And what that is it's when thousands of computers on the internet try to attack one system and bring it down. Microsoft gets brought down regularly. Amazon does, Google. It's very hard to prevent. You can't prevent it fully, but you can do things to mitigate it. And in recent years, we've worked with our internet service provider, which is kind of like Sparklight, to prevent them before they get to our network. And then we've implemented appliances to stop it if it does hit our network. And since we've done those things, we've not had a DDoS attack, which is incredibly disruptive. It was a big deal. We spent 24/7 around the clock working on preventing it. It's really a frustrating thing. So we're very happy that we have not, we've been able to stop those. All right, next slide, please. So one thing we've been working on, and one thing that the service desk is really geared towards, is engaging our community and engaging our students. And so something we've been able to do there with the service desk is offer the ability for our parents to put in tickets, our parents to call, our students to call. And so we have much more engagement with those individuals. I actually just walked into the service desk an hour ago and heard Tyler on the phone with a parent asking for their student information to solve a problem for them. And so that's not something we were doing before. the person had to either go through the teacher and then go through the school and then get to IT. And so that's something that the parent can resolve right then for their student. They might be doing homework. They might need to get into their account and they can't. And that's a huge deal. That improves education. And so I feel like we've been able to do a much better job of engage and innovate within our community with these systems in place. And really, as an entire department, our goal is to provide reliable access to technology. And in some cases, the less you see of us, the better. Because if there's a problem, we have to be there. We're trying to prevent the problem. So that's our goal, is to try to have an impact, but we kind of, in many cases, do it behind the scenes. So next slide, please. So some of our challenges, we covered cybersecurity. It's a huge one. It's continuing and it won't ever stop. Supply chain, as everybody knows, is a monster right now. We've got projects that are 1 to 2 years delayed. We have piece parts that we can't get for intercom systems that creates huge problems when things break. So we try to keep inventory the best we can, but if you can't get the part, you can't get the part. So we've been working through that and working around that. We have a very high Chromebook breakage rate. We have 18,000 Chromebooks. So, as you can imagine, there's a lot of accidental damage, some purposeful damage, and then sometimes things just break. And so our field techs spend probably half their time repairing Chromebooks, screens, keyboards. So that's a huge problem. We've been trying to work on and brainstorming solutions to that. But, at the end of the day, you can maybe reduce it a little bit, but you can't eliminate it. Next slide, please. So planning for the future, as you can kind of see from the presentation, we're always planning for the future. We're always looking at the latest cybersecurity risks. We're working right now on a huge Windows security project to improve our Windows experience across the board for all of our users. We're always working on improving staff support. Tyler's constantly changing processes. We work with the principals regularly. I've met with every principal since I started this position to try to get input about what's working for them, what isn't, and then make the changes if we can. We're improving infrastructure regularly, and that leads me to CTE. CTE is a huge project. IT's been very involved in it. I've been working with Larry and Benton to figure out what we need to put in that building. And we already have it all, some of it spec'd out, and we're going to be purchasing it really soon. And part of it is related to the CIS program we have there as well. And so we've got a lot of interesting things going on there, but CTE is something that as an IT department, we're really, really excited about, because we get to be like, all right, now we get to teach the kids a little bit of the stuff we do. So, so that should be great. So next slide. And with that, do you have any questions for me?
I just want to say thank you first. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. And before we go to the board, Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything? And then we'll go to questions.
I can. Just a couple of quick comments. I'm sure it's not a surprise to any of you, but it touches every single thing we do. I mean, there's not one thing in the school district that technology doesn't touch. And a couple of years ago, we had an internet outage that was outside the district, that something was cut somewhere. And really everyone kind of came out of their offices like, the movies, the zombie kind of thing. Everybody's looking around, what do we do? Everything is tied. We can't do anything without technology. And so it's such an important component of the not only operations, but instruction. And so I really appreciate having such a quality team. Work so hard to keep things up and going. And they're very service oriented, very problem solving oriented, and we have issues that happen and they're on it quickly. And it's really very helpful. The other, I agree, the service desk has been a great improvement, and I just want to take an opportunity to thank Tyler, who is on that service desk, works with us on board meetings, but he's patient, he's kind. Even when it's operator error, and in some cases it is operator error,
he would never say that
about it. And so it is a really important thing. The other day Tyler was out, and so we thought, oh no, what are we going to do? So I get really lucky. I get Scott Leppelman. I thought, oh, this is embarrassing. This is really embarrassing. But anyway, we do appreciate the whole department. And I've done some recent training for healthcare and my volunteer thing, and It is, they said it's one of the top 3 challenges in that organization. One is finances. One is certainly the accessibility to healthcare right now. And then the third is security. And so it's, I would think, one of our top 3 challenges in our district as well. All that goes into helping people know what to do and not to do. I was watching one of the Arctic Wolf things, and I thought it was kind of catchy name for security awareness. But I thought, how many times in my career had I sat in an airport and worked on my computer? Not really realizing what a risk I had put myself in, but also what risk I had put the organization in. So those are really good ways to help people understand how they can be part of that solution. And I love your green screen at the beginning. It's like we enter the matrix, but every time I go into IT, I've had a feeling like I'm going to this strange world, and there they all are.
Yeah, we're a bunch of nerds.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we'll go to questions. Gary Tripp.
I don't have any questions, Scott. I just have some 4 comments in it. And the first comment I have is I want to thank you for thanking people sincerely. During the pandemic, I wasn't on the board yet, and I got a couple of reports about Spanish speakers in a couple of schools, and here you are embracing the whole team. One of the security, I think, took the lead at one of those schools with Spanish speaking families with Chromebooks or something like that. And so it goes a long ways when you build that team around you, because at times like a pandemic, you need everybody, and you do it sincerely. And I want to thank you for that. I don't know who Doug is, but he's the best tech on the planet. And that comment caught me, and I just want to say congratulations to Doug. But thank you also for asking the principals what's working and what's not working. That relationship building will help IT go a long ways to be cohesive as just another team player work in this community. And I agree with Dr. Cleveland, that service desk has really done some great things. Congratulations. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Jeff Morgan.
No questions. Just want to say thanks for the information. Very good stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jessica Tyler.
Also just echoing the congratulatory remarks, and then also just appreciative of having people like you in this world, because so many of us are inept when it comes to technology. And so we're very grateful that there's people like you that enjoy it and take it seriously. And like Dr. Cleveland says, I mean, our whole worlds depend on it. And so thank you. And thank you for being innovative and being willing to try something like a service desk here in the district. I mean, it's shown obviously great results. And so that's awesome that you did that. Thanks.
Noreen Scott.
I just want to say thank you. And it really made a difference that your department got so many Chromebooks out to kids during the pandemic. It made a huge difference, and thanks.
And, there's a lot of people involved in that deserve a lot of credit. I mean, it goes across the board from, Paul Romero before me, Terry Meyer, the technicians, the ed tech. There were so many people involved in that. Our network team spent hours and hours making sure kids had filtering access at home so that, they couldn't view inappropriate materials. And so it really was a team effort all the way down to the school, all the way interdepartment. And so it really couldn't have happened without the staff and the people willing to do those things. So
Great team effort. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, before you go, I guess this question is probably towards Dr. Cleveland. Do you feel with our Chromebooks, I think it's good for our students to have them at home, but with all the breakage that we're having, is it worth looking at just going back to classroom sets and having them at school? Or, have we looked at that? I hate to do that because I think it's good for our students to have them, but at the same time, I'm concerned.
I think we've been talking about, I don't know that I could even respond to that. I think, though, your observation is right. We're seeing a lot of damage, and a lot of it is very severe, very deliberate damage. And so I don't know exactly what we're going to do to deal with that, the cost, the replacement. The other is even a little different perspective, and we certainly have had that discussion in terms of curriculum instruction and school improvement, and when is too much too much? and the need to get students back focused to the person. Yet we know we'll never go back to not having it. I mean, it's always going to be an important part of our program. But what do we do about the abuse? And number two, what do we do about the continual costs? And third is, what are some reasonable limits that we have, not only for Chromebooks, but for phones and other things, to get students back to talking to one another, looking at one another. And so that is, we are talking about it, thinking about it, making some plans of where we might want to go. But we've had some unintended outcomes, as we always do, about, different initiatives that we have. I remember, Noreen, you talked about too long ago about excessive amounts of screen time for children and how much is too much. And so I can't really give you an answer, but I can tell you we're looking at it, and we may come back to the board with some recommendations on what we would like to see. But it is discouraging. We made that much of an effort to put that technology out and see it deliberately vandalized. And yeah, we've had some students, I don't know how many computers they've had already in 1 year, but it's just, it's something we're gonna have to take a look at, because financially it is very costly to just continue to replace and replace and replace.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Great
it.
report.
Great report. Thank you.
Our next report will be on facilities, and Melanie Archbeck, our Executive Director of Facilities, will present.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. My name is Melanie Archbeck. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities. I'm going to give you a brief report on facilities. So next slide, please. There. So we're predominantly service-based. That's the way I look at facilities, is we provide a service to the staff, students, occupants, and the community in general. What we do for the entire district is we provide maintenance, repair, renovation, construction, warehouse. So we do intake, inventory, and distribution for all orders and supplies for the entire district, custodial services, and then we do all of our backgrounds for facilities vendors in conjunction with HR. The main goal for us is creating an environment that is safe, clean, and conducive to learning. Next, please. The main branches that I have are custodial, warehouse and grounds, and maintenance. I also have project managers. I have 2 project managers and a support staff that consists of 152 staff. They're all phenomenal. They do quite a bit. We do have an on-call 24/7 available. So I have a rotating staff so that I don't wear out a particular individual. And that pretty much is made up of all of my management team. So they take cycles of 1 to 2 weeks, and that's how we roll it out throughout the year. Next slide, please. We're also in charge of utilities for the entire district. I just wanted to show you a piece of how much it costs. So this is actually last year's cost, last fiscal year. You can see a large portion of it is electricity. As we get a little bit deeper into the slides, I want to talk about how we have opportunities to maybe reduce that number. We've done quite a bit mechanically within the district, but I think there's more opportunities out there where we can bring that down. Next, please. The strategic plan, I think we're all very familiar with that. The contribution that facilities has for staff excellence. Next slide, please. So a big change that we did probably in the past year and a half is we had a director that managed a lot of my branches. The custodial branch is my largest, consisting of 108 employees. And so we now have a dedicated director just focused on that. We brought on 2 additional custodial managers. And so we have one that manages all the schools north of Northern and the other south of Northern. It's made a tremendous difference. A few years, well, even last year, we were 50% in vacancies in terms of my custodial staff. We did what we needed to do to keep everything safe, doing all our COVID mitigation efforts, but it was a strain on the staff. I can happily say we have 0 vacancies right now in the custodial department. It's made a big difference in being able to really focus in on that group. A big thing that I think is really important is focusing on training. I want to put the time up front for the individual staff so they understand our expectations as a district and within the department. So I focus on that so that then they can self-lead after that. We support licensures. So we do the same thing as IT. We provide the training. We'll pay for that testing for the first time only. And then we have an associated assignment pay tied to that. So we really want to support the staff that wants to improve themselves. And it also helps the district with the skill sets that they're able to bring us. And then I always have an open door policy. So the only time you'll ever see my door closed is if I'm not there, or if I'm having a meeting that requires privacy. But other than that, I have an open door policy for all of my staff to have access to me. The next one under engagement and innovation, I don't know if you heard, but there's CTE. Very excited. So as you know, this is in partnership with CNM. We're kind of looking at an extension with what CNM does as Campus as a Living Lab. So our idea is having an integrated campus with whatever facilities are on that particular site, and to put features in there that are not only sustainable, but are learning features for the CTE students. So that's something overall that we're looking at, is just an integrated campus. On the safety and wellness, we work very closely with our ops partner, which is safety and security, to make sure that all the infrastructure is in place. And then because I do have the custodial department under me, we do look at the health and wellness of making sure those facilities are as clean as possible. Under operational excellence, so I have a lot of staff that's been with the district for a very long time. What they've accumulated over that time is what I refer to as legacy knowledge. And so a lot of that is within their head. It's not on paper or anything else. It's where they've learned the nuances of the building itself, and systems, valves that might be hard to turn. This past year, we actually had a medical situation where our staff wasn't able, they were under restrictions. They weren't able to do their tasks completely. And what we found is there was a lack in having coverage. And so to better serve the students in the district, we want to make sure that we have multiple individuals that are familiar with the nuances of the buildings and the systems. So I switched all the staff so they get reacquainted with these nuances. New this year, CTE is on a lot of our slides. So as you know, there's CTE. I think we are all aware of the excitement of what that brings to the district. But in addition, I got 3 new allocations to support CTE. So I'll talk a little bit about it later, but I am severely understaffed in terms of allocations and taking care of the assets that we have. So it was very exciting to get the 3 new ones to support CTE and the district across. We did inherit the fire alarm. We as in facilities inherited the fire alarm scope from IT. So we are embracing that and kind of digging into it and learning a new skill set and all of that that entails. And then cross-training that I mentioned before. I think that's new for us, and I'm excited it's working well. Little bumps along the way, but it's been working well. New this year, highlights. So I came to you guys a few months ago and presented the 5-year master plan. That's intended to be a roadmap. It identifies our priorities, and it helps me to kind of work through what needs to be done. As you may recall, that committee, there was a committee that was part of it that put together recommendations based on safety, need, and just priorities in general. Behavioral based. So what I'm talking about is behavioral-based savings in terms of electricity. We've done a lot of mechanical in nature, so we've done all of the exterior parking light LED conversions. We are starting to work on exterior wall packs and interior lights. We are getting ready to kick off retro commissioning, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides. HVAC upgrades and making sure that they're energy efficient. We have facility management systems, which control, it's basically digital controls that we have for set points and schedules to help us conserve energy, only have things functioning when we actually are occupying a space. We have sensors, timers on lights and fixtures. So we've done all these mechanical improvements. The big one, when we think about it, is behavioral changes. And so the largest impact is going to be at the schools. And that's just turning off lights, making sure that we are being cognizant of the spaces when we leave it. It's hard. Behavioral changes are hard, but I feel like there's an opportunity there where we can make a big difference. We have summer, and right now we're just kind of talking about what that might look like if we start consolidating and better utilization of the facility so that it will allow us to shut down some of those areas. Preventative maintenance plan. So that was something I presented a few months ago as well. That just helps us to deal with replacements and problems. So we can see if something's wearing out. We can know that the life expectancy is coming. I call it controlled chaos. So if I know something's coming and it needs to be replaced, it's going to be a priority depending on what it is. And if we have the funding for it, I'm going to do it so I can control the chaos. So I can control the impact that we'll have on the students, try and do it during the summer. What we're trying to do with this preventative maintenance is having chaos where something goes down and it is extremely disruptive to the learning environment. So this is what preventative maintenance helps with. So that plan was submitted a few months ago. That, as well as the 5-year master plan, is a requirement if we were to ever receive funding from PSCOC. So we always want those in place as well for that. We digitized all our drawing sets. So if any of you have had the pleasure of being within my suite, I have a very large plan room with a lot of paper documents. Still a little afraid to throw away the paper, but we did digitize everything. As part of that process, we had a company come in and do updated AutoCAD drawings of all of our buildings. The intent is as we make any changes, modifications, we will keep those plans current. With that, they also identified all of our emergency shutoffs, which are utilized for my on-site staff, for safety and security, as well as Rio Rancho Police Departments. So we're having sets that we're creating so that's available for all of us that need it in those emergency situations. eBuilder is something that we are currently in the implementation stage right now. It is a project management software. So when you think about projects within the district, the larger ones I'm going to say are coming from facilities, IT, and safety and security. Even if it is my project, I'm still working very closely with those two groups as well. So we'll all work together on projects depending on whoever owns it. We also work closely with finance, the purchasing department with that. And so what this program is, it's actually a workflow that has all of our documents, projects, everything regarding a project warranty within one space. When you think of the number of internal people touching documents, this is fairly critical to have it all in one area and we all have access to what we need. It can provide boards for Baker and Dr. Cleveland if they needed to know a quick status. In addition to that, when you think of the stakeholders that we work outside of the district, so we have all of our vendors, our design teams, they're also able to provide data. So we own all of these pieces involved with projects. So I'm very excited about that. We're hoping to have it fully functional and released to everybody by the new fiscal year, but we're currently in the implementation phase. Turning pages here. Highlights. I typically work with 5 funding sources for projects. We have operational, SB9, bond, direct appropriations, which is your capital outlay. I'll have a presentation later regarding that, and state match. Our large projects are bond and the direct appropriations. All the other funding is kind of smaller projects that we utilize for repair and maintenance, but our large ones are what I have highlighted here. So our bond project status, I have amazing PM project managers, 2 of them, as well as the support staff. So we are pretty much caught up with the last bond issuance. We're finishing up Rio Rancho Middle School. It's pretty much close out documentation and everything else with the exception of CT. And I think we're all kind of familiar with the status of where we are with that. We do have Independence and Cyber. Those are currently on hold as we kind of look into site. CTE Auto, as you know, that's with CNM. I believe they're taking it to their approval board in January. So that's moving. Direct appropriations, which is also the same thing as capital outlay. There are many retro commissioning projects here. An update to when I created the slides, we actually do have funding now and signed agreements. So I'm working with vendors right now to get proposals and kick off all of these projects. But as just a brief explanation of what retro commissioning is, it's a process to improve the efficiency of an existing building's HVAC equipment and respective system. It addresses problems that have developed throughout the building's life as equipment has aged. It involves a systematic evaluation of opportunities to improve equipment operation and energy using systems, therefore reducing operating costs via energy savings. What I'm utilizing this as, it's going to operate the best that it can our current systems. You can see in our last bond issuance that we had a lot of HVAC projects. That's just a small section of our schools. We still have to finish the remaining schools to do the upgrades. So this is the interim to keep our systems operating until we can get replacement dollars, and it's going to come from bond. That's where we're going to get our largest bit of money. Challenges. I'm going to come back to morale because I think I can explain that a little bit as I go through the staffing allocations and the budget constraints. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm severely understaffed by over 40 staff. What that does is it creates an overwhelming sense on my staff with the amount of tasks that they have to do and the assets that they're responsible for. When we think of all the square footage and acreage and not having enough staff, it's a lot for them to take in. And so that definitely has a hit on their morale. We also have budget constraints. So as I came a few months ago talking about the 5-year master plan, there was a couple of numbers that was thrown there. One of them was if we look at our existing facilities, in order for me to get them where they need to be, I need $10 million a year. I get $3 million. Also, if you look at the projects identified within that plan, I want to say it was over $380 million. Again, $3 million to $4 million, or any bond projects that I get to address that. But anytime we look at this, I can't meet the expectations, right? We can't feasibly meet the expectations of getting everything done because we don't have the funding or the staff. So that really takes a hit on my staff. We are still, I would say, within facilities experiencing some COVID. I think everybody experienced that in different ways, and my team is definitely still dealing with some of that as well. Then we have aging buildings. And so that is added stress, right? It tends to exacerbate the problem a bit as well, because if we can't take care of it, it becomes more expensive and it starts to impact the adjacent systems. So those systems will start to fail. Again, it's things that I wish I could fix. I wish all of us could fix it, but they're kind of tasks that are really hard to deal with when we don't have the funding to do that. So what I'm trying to do is adjust the sails and do the best that we can to address the issues that we can. So we're looking at assessments and what can we attack first and taking small pieces with the largest impact. We look for rebate dollars to help us out with that. Yeah, it's really hard challenges to overcome, I believe. Opportunities for improvement. So that kind of brings us a little bit back to how I can help. Better utilize the report. So we actually have Energy Manager, which is a wonderful tool that I would say we can utilize better. We as in facilities, it gives us reports on the district, school by school, and month by month. So it allows me to look at if perhaps there's a fluctuation in a particular utility, and then I can look into what happened. Is there something going on that we need to address better? But it's information's power. And so I think that we can better utilize that to save energy. Team building, I've been doing a lot of team building efforts. I will say before COVID, we were, what is it called? A hot oiled machine. Worked very well. And then there was a bit disjointed when we all came back. And so it's trying to get us all back together again and kind of working towards the same goal. So that's something that I've been focusing on quite a bit. Also meeting more with the management team to make sure that we understand. So we've been having quarterly meetings to understand the respective departments and kind of the concerns or issues that they're having so that we can address it as a whole. Preventative measures, as I mentioned before, really key for us to make sure that we can get ahead of things and control that chaos. I now stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Well, Dr. Cleveland, do you want to give some comments before we go to questions?
Thank you for your report. And I do want to kind of just underscore what's been said about the huge amount of needs and the very limited funding that we have. And one of the things superintendents were really hoping is we had this additional windfall over the last couple of years. They put some of this money towards school facilities, getting them repaired and up to speed. So far, there doesn't seem to be a lot of traction with that. The one area where there seems to be some is lowering the offset and the match, so that if we can accomplish that, our money would go a lot further in terms of our bonds and others. Mm-hmm. So we continue to keep an eye on that. And really across our state, our buildings, our school buildings are in severe disrepair. And so we escaped that for quite a while because we were building new schools. But now the newest, of course, several of our schools, as you know, predate the start of the district. But the first schools we built as a district are now 27 years old. So that whole thing of staying up and the challenge, I think, in facilities is priorities on top of priorities. So choosing what to do, but it's not like among, high and low level priorities. It's choosing among the most essential priorities. So it is a real challenge and something that the state needs to look at, and we need to continue to support. But anyway, thank you. It is a challenge, and they have a huge job to do, and not enough resources and not enough people to be able to deal with all of the issues that they're facing. But they have good staff. They work very hard to try to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Melanie, for doing so much with what you do have. And our buildings, I know that they need repair and there's so much that needs to be done, but you have done a really good job with what you do have. So those numbers were a little shocking to hear. So
Team, I'll share that. It's a
Yeah.
team. Team effort.
thank you. Thank you. Noreen Scott, any questions, comments?
I have a couple questions. The 5-year master plan, were there, who was on that board, advisory group?
So we had representatives, I will say, from almost all the executive directors. We had fine arts, athletics, the school improvement officers, of course, security, safety and security, IT, facilities. We had some cabinet members on there. We had community members that were invited. I think they maybe attended just one. I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody. Special services, yes, yes, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to suggest that you invite a couple of school board members because what happens is we get that plan after it's totally baked, and we really didn't get to have the kind of input in it. I think we might have been able to give at least some ideas. So I think in the future we should have at least 1 or 2 school board members on the committee. Second, on CTE, do you feel that you have clear direction now on where you're going with that building?
On the CTE renovation, and
Yes.
we have some wonderful contacts that we have now, point of contacts, and so I think we're working through everything that we need to obtain. I wouldn't say we have everything, but we are pulling things as the programs are being developed. We're able to pull the information that we need.
So do you have a clear idea of what's going to be done in that building right now?
I have a clear idea in terms of overall spaces. As the courses start to get defined, which we're getting now, it's been wonderful working with Todd Raish. As those are being defined, we're able to know specifics. So is it carpentry? Is it cabinetry? Is it rough carpentry? Is it framing? We're starting to get those defined because that becomes very critical when we talk about the equipment and the spaces that are needed. So we're starting to move forward on that.
And that's all to the architect now.
Yeah, is that
The architect is not brought on board yet, so we're working contracts and everything. Yeah.
The reason I'm following up so tightly on CTE is that building has now sat vacant for almost a year, and we're paying for utilities and we're paying for staff to security, and it seems to me that that's a waste of our taxpayer money by not moving forward on at least something. Is there a reason for that?
I think we have been moving forward. So we have had a master plan that we've been working. I think in the workshop, we've spoken about things that we've had to be agile about, but we have actively been working.
I appreciate that response, and I understand that budget is a challenge, but it's the thing that I hear most from the community is what's happening with that building, and now they're hearing that folks are being moved out of the building, which we understand is for safety and security, to move things forward. But what is your projected occupancy date?
I think right now, if there are no delays or changes, we're looking to have start programs in January 2025. So we'll have that building ready, occupied at that time. I did want to back up a little bit to what you said. I think one of the hardest things within my job is to understand the life of a project. So the life of a project could easily be 5 years from when we think of the project to obtaining funding, planning, and everything. It's not noticeable to people until we actually have a shovel, but there's actually years of work behind the actual construction of a project. And that's not something that's really visible to a lot of people, so they don't understand that there is active work taking place. It's not until that groundbreaking takes place that it's really understood that we're doing stuff, but the life of a project could easily be 5 years.
And so by the time we move in, the life of this project in an existing building is 3 years from the time we began till the time we move in. Is that correct?
If we're counting from 2025, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Jessica.
Just one quick question. You talked about the fact that you're short-staffed, and is that just purely because of budgetary constraints that you're not allotted that personnel, or that we're carrying vacancies?
I understand priority is teacher student ratio. And so we do have limitations within budget, and that is the priority. My understanding it is budget. I'm over 40 across all my branches.
Gary Tripp.
Within the 5-year master plan, Melanie, is what every building needs, are they in the 5-year plan? And for example, if this particular school needs a new roof, is that within the 5-year master plan?
It is. So it has identified by school, and then there's even charts that show the majority in terms of cost of projects. So right now, Rio Rancho High School is the one with the most monetary needs. And that would make sense when you think of the age and the scale of that campus.
So is that 5-year master plan based on $3 million a year?
No.
Or is it based on $10 million a year? Or is it based on this is the total cost?
Total cost. So the findings were, in order for me to get everything up to par, $10 million a year. Again, my budget's $3 million is what I get. So I'll never be able to reach that level. And then the projects that were identified were, I want to say, $380 million. And the idea, and the reality is we can't get that done in 5 years because we don't have the money. So it's going to be, bond is going to be my largest avenue to go after things. And those are our existing buildings. They have a lot of needs that need to be addressed.
So when we talk about staffing shortage, is that staffing shortage to meet the needs of spending $3 million a year, $10 million a year, or $380 million?
So there's actually a formula based on our square footage and acreage. So it has nothing to do with money. It's on the actual assets that they're responsible for.
Okay. So when you talk about shortage of staff, are we talking about in every area like HVAC or project managers or maintenance workers? I mean, is there a way to get a list of what the shortage is and what that staff will actually do on a yearly basis?
So the way
meet
that
the
I have
needs?
broken it down, I've put in decision packages and requests, and I've broken it down by the branches. So how many I'm lacking in custodial, how many I'm lacking within grounds, and how many I'm lacking within maintenance. As I get new FTEs, then I look at the greatest need and the best benefit that I can have with the individual.
And do you think I mean, at $3 million a year, and if we need $380 million currently for the next 5 years, so we're really economically falling behind the 8 ball, very significant each year.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, just a lot of thoughts right now.
I know. Thank you. And Jeff Morgan, and then we'll go back to Dr.
I just
Cleveland.
had one question. You talked a lot about reducing the energy and how I think that was one of your very first slides where it looks like electricity was a large percentage of that.
2,000,008 something.
Almost 2.7 million,
Yeah.
62.7%. Are you using anything from a solar standpoint as well? Because every time I drive up to Cleveland High School, either pick up my wife or drop lunch off or something, I see the panels out there. Is that helping save some of the energy? You didn't mention some. No, I didn't hear you.
No.
Let me say that, but
So we have 2 solar fields we lease the property and we get some benefit of what's produced. So that's at both of the high schools, Rio Rancho and Cleveland. We own the smaller solar field at Rio Rancho Middle School. So at the 2 high schools, it basically gives us a reduced cost. So we get a cost from P&M, and then we also get a lower reduced cost from the solar field. We're still paying out to both. It's just a reduced cost.
I wouldn't ask if we were going to invest in any more because according to what Mr. Tripp said, we're way off from where we need to be. So I
Sun
would
is
imagine
free.
it's not
Sun is free. But
I mean, I agree, but,
Yeah.
but it costs to get that.
the first time cost is what's most expensive,
Right,
right? And so when we're looking at projects, and I hate the term value engineering, but it's the reality of what we look at when we're looking at our budgets is we try to see what's going to give us the most value and what we can maintain. Sun is free, but it's those initial costs. It does cost money.
Saves in the long run, but it does initial cost. Thank you. That's a very good job. That's
Thank
all
you.
I have.
Thank you. And Dr. Cleveland? you-
Just
more comments.
a couple of quick things. Like other things in New Mexico, our RSB 9, our match, is not favorable toward this district. Just like running it through the formula is not favorable to our district. It's another way we end up short. And so that's one of the conversations that we need to have continually legislatively to look at that, as whether we could get a larger share. There's been 2 or 3 times we thought we were going to get a little break in terms of more SB 9 money match, but we didn't get it. And so that's something that we need to be looking at. The other is I have asked Mike if we could apply for a federal grant that we have learned about through Senator Heinrich's office, are pretty significant money. And yes, it's going to be very competitive, and our chances to get it, but somebody's going to get it. So we might as well try and see if we're one, we have a shot at it. But I would love to see us, if we were to apply for that, apply for solar. And it would be a tremendous offset if we could get that money. The other that we have at Cleveland, I wish we could have everywhere, and that's the geothermal wells under Cleveland. That building stays the most consistent of temperatures of any building in the district. And yet it was a large investment. And that's the challenge, is having the money to invest up front, just like you do if you put solar on your own house. You put an investment, and over time, you hopefully will pay you back. But it's so we really need a larger share for SB 9 that will generate more money. And that is something that we need to continue to work with the state on. And the other, to become more aggressive about trying to apply for some dollars. But we did get a really nice letter from Martin Heinrich's office alerting us to that. And we're going to take a shot at it. But if we could get solar for all our buildings, that utility bill wouldn't disappear. But boy, would it go down substantially. I know one of the other districts in New Mexico is a larger district. I think they are applying for electric buses. So they're going at it more in terms of transportation and hoping that they might get funded for some of that. So this break continues to raise the issue of, and it's something we may want to look at. Money's always so tight. But whether the district, it's the size we are now, ought to look at a grant writer, because it's just really hard. Our people, you hear, they're really busy in everything they're doing right now. And then to ask them to step up and take the time to write a major federal grant, it is extremely time consuming, and you have to have a high level of skill to do it. It's not, you just don't pull it out and do it. It's the last really big grant we got was Tana Burgos several years ago that funded our SAFE program initially. And so, that's another thing maybe we want to think about, is finding a grant writer. What we did with the one we had many years ago was they had to get to a certain level of funding in order to keep their position. And she did a great job, and she kept that position every year and generated some good revenue for the district. So that's just something we may want to take a look at, because there are a lot of opportunities out there.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we'll have you back up here soon enough. Thank you. Now to approve the consent. Any questions on our consent?
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Just information, actually, and that is the U.S. Department of Education G5 External Award Activity. I don't know what it is. Just wanted to see if some.
Is anyone able to answer that question?
In the bar and.
Will you one more time say the
It's the U.S. Department of Education G5 External Award Activity within the bars.
On the consent.
I just wanted to know what it was.
Open it up on mine.
If I can find it. And it's not a big deal. I just wanted to know.
I think if there's a question on any of it, we need to remove it from the consent agenda.
Yeah, so we can talk about small
You
questions,
just wanted to know.
but,
how to,
yeah.
I don't need them.
Not for the sake of change or anything.
But if it's a
like that.
big
I think
thing,
we're
we
just
would need to
curious.
Yeah,
remove
just
it.
curious.
So with that being said, this is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Gary Tripp, second.
Perfect.
And if someone from the district staff would be able to get back to and just let us know that item that board member Tripp
Yeah,
said
it's a
needs to
little
know.
troublesome that nobody can answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, we might have. Okay, so we have a motion and we by Jeff Morgan and a second by board member Tripp. Kim, can you take a roll call for us on this? I actually need to do
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
No,
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
No.
and President Galbraith.
that. Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
I saw you guys talking really quick. Did you have a better answer for that question, or you want to get it to us later?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So I don't, the two bars on the agenda, Indian education, are a long time ago, carryover. The question is in regard to the portal.
Maybe it's within the consent agenda. Maybe it's not a bar.
I don't remember seeing that name when I looked at it
But
earlier.
it's,
there.
there's two, there was drawdowns on 10,000, 26,000, and 10,000 from the U.S. Department of Education G5. And there was a drawdown of 184,972. And it says U.S. Department of Education, EdCaps G5, External Award Activity History Detailed Report. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, what did you say, sir? Okay.
Okay.
We'll get that information.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving into our business. So we'll start by discussing establishing the Rio Rancho Public Schools priorities for the 2023 session of the New Mexico Legislature. We have Chris Balzano here to discuss with us from Balzano Government Relations. It's nice to see you, Chris.
Good to see you too, President. Good evening, President, Superintendent, members of the board.
Oh yeah, this is our next one. We can get that's okay. I feel like it's all kind of similar to like what we're looking at.
First slide, please. There we go. So just at their a timeline of our regular session. This year is going to be a 60 days regular session. Some deadlines there that you're probably receiving are newsletter and alerts on capital outlay and junior bill submissions. Just doing our due diligence to make sure that we don't forget those deadlines. So we're working with the administration on that. Next slide, please. All right, so those are the resolutions that the board submitted to the New Mexico School Board Association. Just so that you can take a look on that, on those resolutions. I think the big one right now is investing on CTE. We have been working through interim on that and communicating that with LFC. As we know, they came over the tour and present it. And I know that the administration right now is communicating through channels with LFC, and we are getting close to have a deal a day before the session starts. So that's when we will know exactly on policy related to that. But this is, you're probably familiar with your own resolution. Let's go to the next slide. This is the administrative recommendations. And I like this because it allows us to work together, right? The board and the administrative recommendations, and trying to find a hybrid there. We felt that CT is a priority to make sure that there is a revenue stream there. The big discussion has been on a offset in the match, and we're working with Senator Stewart and Senator Brandt. They did present before the Education Study Committee on that, so I'm monitoring that closely. And again, it seems like that we might be able to arrive in a place where school districts don't get penalized for receiving additional funding, and that's what we want to make sure that happens with CTE. We are monitoring as well. There is conversations about increasing hours for ELTP, instructional hours, and we want to make sure that there is funding that and doesn't hurt our school district with that. Special appropriation for shortfalls related to NEMSIA. That's something that happens often where there's a shortfall, they make an appropriation, then the school district has to figure out a way to fill up the gap. The city is working on legislation for IPER, and we know that the New Mexico Association of Educational Leaders are working on perhaps creating a line item, budgetary line item, or a bill on funding, having recurring funding through junior bill for CTE programs, mental health curriculum, and intern programs. Dr. Cleveland, I don't know if you want to add anything related to the administrative recommendations and comment on that.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. That there is a dedicated revenue stream in the. There is a dedicated revenue stream right now in the proposed budget that the governor has submitted. I do believe there's one in the LESC and LFC budget. I think everyone is concerned it's still not enough. They have put a significant amount of money in for the capital and renovation, which is really good news. So the real key is whether we have enough to operate those programs. Talked with the superintendent from Hobbs, and he said his biggest challenge this year is having enough operational money to run their CTE center. And so it is more expensive, and it's hard to get legislators to understand that when you swap out a Spanish 1 class for a welding 1 class, the costs aren't anywhere near the same. And so I think a lot of folks say, well, if they take CTE, they'll just won't take something else. And that's true. They won't take something else. But the things that they're not taking may be far less expensive than compared to CTE courses, which are very expensive. And I know the second one you're very much aware of, but I just kind of want to say it one more time. We got a lot of money last year for extended year. It helped us balance our budget and provide some really, really good programs for our district. Now that everyone is going to go to those hours, they're talking about sending it through the formula. Okay, what happens to Rio Rancho when you send it through the formula? So our fear is that we will get less than we've had before. So I reached out to LFC, had a good conversation with Charles about it. I have been trying to get a hold of Gwen Ornament. LFC thinks their budget will be better for us. LESC, I don't know, Charles said we just need to watch both, but he thinks one might be a better for us, so we need to be constantly looking at that. I talked with the secretary. The secretary said the instruction that he has given of what the PED would like to see is no district that did ELTP be penalized and in fact incentivized. And that's the secretary and the governor's position. But as we all know, positions mean nothing when you get in there and start crunching those 3 proposals for the budget. So we are going to have to watch that really, really carefully. And you all know about NEMSIA, we're 40+ million in the hole. And the danger of that is passing it on to districts. We can't afford it, but oh my goodness, our personnel can't pay more for their health insurance or not much more. They've seen increases the last 3 years. It's getting really, really high. So we're hoping they're going to bail us out this one time because it's COVID. And it is a one-time thing, even though we're still feeling that out. And the research development is all 89 districts are in support of that. That came from NIMSL and that came from STAN. And while we want and support and are thankful for salary money, at some point you need program money. You need money to put in new programs, things to do for kids. And we're hoping there might be some of that. And then you're very familiar with the junior bill. So those are just some thoughts. The biggest fear I think right now we have is what's going to happen when everybody goes to the longer year and we may end up with less if they're not careful. Charles thinks there needs to be some adjustment in the formula for the districts who did step forward and who did what was asked of them. And so we're trying to get a hold of it. If you get a hold of them, we'd love to have you do that. I'd love to see the scenarios broken down by districts for LFC budget and LESC budget to see really where we stand. Senator Brandt said he saw an LESC budget breakdown not too long ago, and we looked pretty good with LESC. So as soon as we get our hands on those scenarios, it will be really, really interesting to see how we're going to fall out in that.
Yeah, President and Superintendent, just to add to your point, today I had a conversation with Chairman Andreas Romero from the House Education and Senator Souls from the Senate Education. And to add again, that he echoes that the Legislative Education Study Committee scenario is the best scenario so far. And to add, they are creating an auxiliary funding line item for districts that have a similar profile with Rancho, where when we see that, oops, we're going to get hurt here, you can have access to the auxiliary funding. That way, we don't get penalized for it. So that was something that I stress and offer help. I did ask if there is a copy of a draft legislation. And at this moment, there is no legislation being drafted because they're trying to crush the numbers. But the day before the session is the day that the Legislative Education Study Committee will have their last hearing. And perhaps we'll have endorsed legislation in that committee, and then we can actually take a look at it and give some feedback, have our team take a look and provide feedback on that. But there is discussions for an auxiliary funding for ELTP.
I think that everyone that I've talked to, the one thing everyone's in agreement is if nothing is done, we will end up short. And so it would be so unfair for a district to step forward, who did what we were asked to do, put in these programs and supports, and then we would have to withdraw them. And that money would go to districts who didn't support it, didn't step forward, weren't part of that. So we really hope that they will keep us. I know the word up there, I've been told never to say it. It's a really bad word, but hold harmless. And I said, every time I've ever used that term, I've been told never use that word. But to hold harmless and incentivize those where we don't get hurt. And so thank you for being on top of that, because I think if we look at the budget, that's probably our single number one greatest fear right now, is that we could end up with one of the early preliminary where they ran through the numbers just early, but we would have been about 3 million short. So we are going to have to stay right on that through the session. So thank you for your hard work on that.
Thank you. So now my questions to the board is, what do you want to include in your priorities for the legislative session?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Gary Tripp.
So I was able to take the New Mexico School Board on the committee and worked on that throughout the day, and in discussion with school board members that have the same size of district, so to speak, Las Cruces, Santa Fe, and Farmington, and a few others, working throughout the day, coming back just on my notes that I kept from back in October. Priorities was the first priority, and I have the booklet from the New Mexico School Board conference last week, if we want to see all the proposals that were recommended. But adequate transportation funding, because Rio Rancho Public Schools transportation with its density factor is being not treated as fair as other districts. And that was a high priority from the board a couple of months ago. Educational assistants, increased salaries for our educational assistants in our school district. The support for school safety. And I know that we're working on trying to meet the needs of keeping every child safe. And I know that the security department and Mr. Baker are working on some proposals to increase our safety. And so we had that as a very high priority. I still do. Invest in the New Mexico future through career technical education was another one of our big priorities, and we've talked about that tonight. And then one of the things that the board talked about as a high priority was the capital funding for early childhood education. Some other things have come up, like SB 9 and some other issues, but I just wanted to mention those were priorities we talked about a couple of months ago. Those were priorities we pushed with the New Mexico School Boards Association, and everything we proposed from Rio Rancho Public Schools was accepted by the school boards across the state. So just wanted to highlight those. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I respond to
Yes,
that?
please, Dr. Cleveland.
I did get an email this week that there's going to be significant increase in money for early childhood programs and students, but the caveat is going to be that it be full day. Well, if we go full day, then half the children, we'll have to cut serving half the children we're serving now. So to Board Member Tripp's point, the key for us is going to have to be more buildings or we can't do it. And we're going to be cut out of all the additional funding if we don't go full day. And yet, how do we cut services from half the children? In addition, we have the largest percentage of eligible, can't talk, it's been a long day, eligible children of any school district in New Mexico that's not being served right now. And that came from LFC. So that's where that number came from. So it is going to be a huge issue. And we're all for it. I mean, if they want full day program, fine. But where are we going to put the kids? And so that capital is a really important component. In addition, one other thing that was mentioned, I know at the meeting, mentioned the superintendent's meeting, and I jumped over just very quickly, was IPRA. And it's just killing the districts across the state. And it's being abused and it's being manipulated for marketing and other things. It's not at all what it was designed to do. My understanding is Texas has really reined in theirs, and there are actually penalties for frivolous use. And we want to give people any information they need to have, but we do have folks who abuse it, and it ties up staff time and hours and hours and days and days. And so looking at IPRA would, I think, be a very important component as well. But there's going to be a lot of money for that. And then the last comment on school safety, I think a lot of progress has been made to eliminate the offset altogether and reduce the match. If that is the case, we would absolutely want to support that. And there seems to be strong support across the board for eliminating any penalties for school safety, whether it's construction or equipment, fire alarms, communication systems, any of those things. So that would be really good news. And I think a lot of that came up. Mike went up and spoke to them on that issue a couple of years ago. We really, when it comes to safety, there shouldn't be penalties. There should not be penalties financially for doing the things we need to do to keep our kids safe. Mm-hmm. So I think things are in the works on several of those.
Yeah. Well, and I want to add what you're saying to IPRA is that our school districts are basically a data leak. If we were to have our personal information given out to the public through Amazon or any of those things, that would be an issue. But here we have to give out information about our parents, their we saw this in the last election process, and that is a problem. And that's something that needs to be fixed. As a parent in the district, I don't want my information being given out to anyone. And so to me, when we talk about some of those things, that's a really important thing that we need to address with that as well. So
the purpose originally for IPRA was to make all government documents available for the community, the public to see. But it has morphed into something very different. We get calls from companies, and you can tell exactly what they're using it for. So it's marketing for their business. And that was not the original intent. Or it's an invasion of people's privacy, and that was not the intent. It was the exact opposite of that. So to kind of rein it in the past, it's been hard because, people who suggest some reasonableness in relation to that law are, anti-transparency, and that's not it at all. It's not it at all. We'd just like it to go back to what the original law intended, which was to make all government operations and documents available to the community to review and see.
Chris, a question on that, and I don't know if you know the answer to it at all, but when it comes to IPRA, I mean, everyone has always said no one wants to touch it. Is that your feeling as well? Is that this would be a really difficult thing to have someone back?
Madam President, I think I don't know if I should name a few legislators that will be more than happy to work on legislation on that. The discussion and the roundhouse on that subject matter has been active for the last 3 years. It's just trying to figure out how to clean up without creating unwanted consequences, like Dr. Cleveland mentioned, that they had this idea of transparency, but now it's becoming a burden and being used for wrong purposes. But that discussion is happening there. Oftentimes in all school districts that engage actively pushing that, because we have to monitor other things that are happening on education, but we do participate in the conversation and under direction of the administration. Chris, yes, support from behind the scenes, or help them with whatever they need on task. But there is legislatures, there are groups that are working on that, and we'll see if something happens there. Yeah. But if you're my client, if you want to work on legislation on that and sponsor on that, we'll go after. Yeah. But it's not something that generally we see school districts doing, right? But there is discussion.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Madam President, Chris, question, just for my, I don't know, junior bill. Mm-hmm. If we get a support on a junior bill from one of our legislators, does it take away in another area those dollars?
The offset.
The offset.
Yeah, offset. I don't know the answer to the question, but does anybody, Mike? There you go, the offset. So
that's a yes.
The answer is yes. Okay. Yeah, there is an offset. And with junior bill, we have to also keep in mind that it is recurring or not recurring, right? Because sometimes they might make an appropriation and on junior bill, but is that going to be coming every year? And we have an issue with transparency on that too. There is no process like capital outlay. It's something that really relates to relationships. I'm walking the hallway, they put me inside the office. I got 500,000 here for you, right? But the governor did work on a special session saying, I want a record of this, and they did change some. And I know the legislature is working on creating a formal, if there is junior bill during that, you create a formal way to process that, like capital outlay is done right now. But that's the challenge with junior bill funding.
Chris, would you mind to tell, I think most of the board knows, but it might be good even for the community here, how the junior bill works?
The junior bill is used only for programmatic funding. So we call junior bill, but it's for programs. So let's say that you have a building and you can use capital outlay to build the building, you can use capital outlay to fill the building with equipment, and then now you need money for a program. So the junior bill would come in, and if you secure to lobbying and advocating that funding, you can hire, let's say if it is mental health, you will hire a counselor or and somebody that staff to run that program, that curriculum inside of the building with the equipment that is there. And then hopefully the funding is recurring so you can keep that going. But if it is not, then you get in a year where the school district has to figure out a way where we're going to find the funding to keep up with that program. But that's how junior bill funding bill works.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jeff Morgan.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear. You're asking for our recommendations, right?
Yes. So right now, Madam President, we have, I put here, adequate transportation funding, educational assistance, increase their salary, school safety, proposal to increase safety, and making sure that funding that is appropriated to the school safety does not go into the offset, the match. CT as a priority, capital funding for early childhood education, and then we stop there on number 6. So I'm just writing down those ideas so that in January we can come back with the
Can we go back to the school board's list of the,
slide 3.
yes. So we're assuming that all of those that you sent to the School Boards Association are
Right.
there.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Why are we asking to give you recommendations when we've already given you that?
I think we just want to make sure we're all on the
And
same.
the next slide is what the administration is asking you to consider to add on.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with the list that because I think all of us as board members put this together,
Yeah.
right?
We did.
Yeah, so that's, and I like to add all of those. I mean, to make it real simple.
It make my life easier, so this is good.
I'm trying to do, man. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah. That way we can move on. See?
All right. Well, I really want that Empress. So, hopefully.
I want them all too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm understanding is we will keep those bullet points on the resolution, and then the ones that are not there from the administrator we will add. Is that clear? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps, and I want everyone to have an opportunity to talk, but as you are expressing what's important to you, we should probably also have what is our really top priorities, because for Chris to go up there and be like, okay, we have this and we have this and we have this and we have this, like, okay, they're not listening anymore. So I think we have this list that's important with all of these things, but we also need to say maybe for each of us, this is my top 3, or if we only have 30 seconds to talk to someone, what's the thing we want to get out?
I mean, again, CTE for number 1. I mean, the young lady just got up here and said she works off of a $3 million budget every year and she needs 10. I mean, the other one was school maintenance for facilities was 1, and then CTE. And then another one that I would consider making sure it stays on the list, the compensation for EAs.
Okay.
Okay.
One other thought on that is, for example, the second and the third bullet, at the time you were doing those resolutions, we were not aware that we were 42 million in the hole with DIPSIA insurance and what that would mean for our employees, because we didn't have that number at that time. And then the other is this we weren't aware that they are probably moving to mandate the longer year for all school districts. And then we turned our attention to, okay, well, how's that going to be funded? And is that going to hurt Rio Rancho? So 2 and 3 are examples of things we didn't know until just the last couple of weeks. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 are coming really from both the school boards and the NIMSL, the administrators organization. And then the junior bill is just the things that we ask for assistance with. So I would add on that, though, on the intern program, I think Mike Chavez would like us to be sure and add in that, and the residency program. So both intern and residency on the very last line. They're
Okay.
2 separate programs, and he would really like to see us be able to continue both. Isn't that the case, Carl? With that, your understanding, we wanted residency as well as intern?
Our concern has been starting a residency program.
Is Mike here?
For 1 year.
Oh, let's see, maybe
and
so.
not have it continuing. So Mike has that same concern to make sure we start a program to get new teachers and working and making sure they continue funding.
Yeah. Chris, how many lobbyists represent school districts?
It is a big chunk of us there. I would say about 12.
So I think it would be wise for us to identify what we care about most for this school district and hope that some of the other school districts will fight for some of these other things that we all need. So I don't know. That's just my thought. But is that the way it works or no?
Madam President, yes, that's the way it works. I think I see the resolutions, right? When I look at the resolutions, I'm assuming that those resolutions are based on your perspective and what our school district needs. And that's the idea of the legislative priorities of the school district approved by the board, that yes, we have the New Mexico School Board Association over there. We have the New Mexico Association of Educational Leaders, but they cannot go into the details because they represent a large group. Otherwise, they cut themselves halfway in one side and on the other side of the fence. So it's hard for them. So that's when it comes the lobbyists working together on a specific strategy for the school district, for our region, for our community. And when there is common ground, we do share the load of the work, like you just said, Madam President, where we say, hey, Chris is going to work on transportation, you work on LTP, because really it's, as you know, we kill about 300 to 600 pieces of legislation with mandates and no funding attached, right? So we have to be everywhere at the same time, and we do our best when we're up there. So, but that's how we work. We share, we get in a room and okay, this is what we're gonna do together. So
We also, for example, right now on CTE, the three districts that are really pushing it the most are Hobbs, who has it, but now we're struggling with the operational dollars. They have the equipment. But we've been in close contact, regular contact with the superintendent from Las Cruces. And we're kind of in the middle. They're a little bit behind us in terms of the development. Hobbs is a little bit ahead of us. But you also look at who has the legislators who have the power to make it happen. And so you look both parties, try to cover both. Senator Brandt has been a real strong advocate, and Representative Hernandez for CTE. But almost nothing happens in education if you don't have the support of Senator Souls in Las Cruces. And so his superintendent's working him pretty hard right now. And the other, in Hobbs, one of the most powerful senators, the most respected in education, is Senator Kernan from Hobbs. And she's been a really key force in moving this forward. She's a former educator and has always been a good voice. So you're looking not only at the districts and the superintendents that kind of come together, but you're also looking at those legislators who are in the right places to help us get that done. And so it is a rather complex, it's a complex process. But our lobbyists have been just absolutely critical. And in most cases, the lobbyists represent larger districts. In other cases, in the smaller districts, it's often through the regional service centers. They kind of band together several districts and kind of have one person that works with them. But there are times when in the past where we didn't have representation, and it hurt us terribly because things happened late at night that nobody was aware of, and there was nobody there, and the vote went through. And the biggest one I can think of, it was just devastating the school district, was almost at midnight, they decided on prior year funding at a time when we were growing hundreds of students a year and we were getting money for them. So having that ability, and I guess, Chris, I mean, my thought is, having watched it in operation, the lobbyists do work well together when their districts have a common purpose and goal.
that's
We
correct.
also respect each other when we have difference of opinion. We just have to agree to disagree. But I think there is a lot of cooperation and collaboration on a lot of the key issues, and really appreciate that work that is done. And I'm talking about the charts, and want to tease Chris a little bit, but he's been masterful at getting some of those charts out that we weren't supposed to see. And so we're getting them a little earlier than let me say it that way, a little earlier than we would normally have had them. But
Dr. Cleveland,
information is power, and we've appreciated that. If no one was there, that wouldn't have happened. And we would have gotten that information so much later. Yeah.
Dr. Cleveland, you're interfering with my counterintelligence strategy in Santa Fe by sharing that.
Nothing illicit. Now, I wasn't anyway suggesting in the middle of the night or anything like that. But it is important to have someone there that is hearing that discussion.
Okay. So now we'll go over to Jessica. Do you have any?
Yeah, I did have a concern about the appropriation for the NIMSIA shortfall. I did see in your report for this week that at the most recent LESC meeting, that there is a proposed bill to actually increase the employer contributions for insurance, which also would not be helpful for the district at all. And it doesn't make any sense to me that the thought process is for it to match other state employees when they're two separate insurance groups. Why would we need to have the same contribution as other state employees when it's not the same type of insurance, even group that, it doesn't even function the same way. And so that's definitely concerning. I know they hadn't taken any action, but the fact that there's a senator proposing that bill is concerning. And so I would want to make sure that we do keep a close eye on that.
So right now, thank you. And right now, I don't know if you want to write, your legislative priorities, just putting the priorities there, or if you already actually want to put bullets as priorities from 1 to, I don't know, 10. But right now, what I see here is CTE, transportation, EAs, and MPSA. It'd be fair to say is the top 4 that definitely is there.
Yeah. What is
Say
everyone?
that again, Chris?
CTE, transportation, EAs, and NIMSIA.
School safety.
School safety.
I thought,
I'll
yeah,
put here.
support
Yep.
school safety. Yeah.
Yeah, I am really concerned with this, with what's going on with NIPSIA. So I think that's a really important one that we do address.
There is also proposed legislation to increase the EA salaries. There's the proposed bill for that as well, to increase it from $12,000 to $25,000, $14.5 million to support that initiative.
Yeah, so with those ones, we just want to make sure that we're expressing that we're supporting that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
So that's good that those things are out there. And so, yeah, I would say definitely. I'm hoping with CTE at this point. Last year when we went and spoke to our legislators, everyone was on board, but nobody knew what to do. So now we've had a year and there's been a lot of movement. And so I'm hoping that is when, and we just need to continue to push that from our end. But I'm hoping we're going to see some really good things with it at this next session. That's definitely our hope. Dr. Cleveland, what would you add to those things?
I think you said it really well. So I think these two lists really give Chris a feeling when bills come up where the board stands on that, and they come up quickly, and sometimes decisions have to be made very quickly, or support or not support, and it really gives him a good list to work from. And we try to be available to Chris when he has needs, needs information, but having this, I think gives you enough direction in terms of where you would want to vote to support the board has voted on. So I think these two are good lists.
Okay.
I think I agree with you, President Galbraith. I think we've made huge gains in a year in the awareness of CTE. A year ago, nobody was even talking about it. And I think we made some gains. The biggest challenge we still have is operational. There's not enough in there. And I have been asked, and I just got it today, so I've not had a chance to really work on that very much with others. But Senator Brandt needs to know quickly what is the weighted factor that would give us the right amount of money to operate CTE. And that's kind of like saying, oh gosh, in a day or two, give us is really, monumental information. But we have that list for the Education Commission of the States where we kind of look and see what other states are doing in terms of that weighted unit. Late this afternoon, I haven't shared it with the rest of cabinet, I got an email from Secretary Steinhaus, and it's a survey on some really important dollar items that we've talked about tonight. And we're going to have to fill this survey out. Sorry, everybody. I have to fill this survey out. It has to be completed before we leave for break. And so it's, for example, Carl, one of the questions they're asking is, we want to know precisely how much money you need for the social studies adoption next year. So we can figure that out, but it's going to take a little time to do it. But there's several questions. So they're really getting down right now to very specific numbers on a variety of different questions. So one is, what would the weighted unit look like for CTE? Would give you enough operational dollars. I don't know that we know that, but we're going to have to try to figure out something that's defensible and get that in. So we're a month away from the start of the session, and things are starting to move really quickly now. I think my impression, I don't know what yours is, that it's moving quicker than I've seen it in the past for getting ready for the session. Usually the session's kind of slow, kind of get started on a 60-day, and then it starts to pick up. That doesn't seem to be what's going on right now. It seems to be moving pretty quickly.
I think one of the benefits of COVID-19 is that through the virtual session, I felt in my 10 years lobbying that legislatures were extremely active every single day working. There is not a lot of distractions happening, right? We had several special sessions after that as well. So I think that energy is there, and it's good to see them working. To give an idea, most of the deals and discussions, have been happening this month. We have been very busy up there in Santa Fe every single day. Things will calm down after the 20th, and then on the 5th, everybody's back there already working. It's going to be a big day on that Monday before the Tuesday that the session starts, because that's the day we hadn't have for sure having a better idea, especially on our priorities, what's going on with the funding and all that. On your point with the number, why our legislators ask for that is because LFC is really good coming up with the number and telling them this is the number that Rio Rancho needs. And as a lobbyist, I feel that is important for us working together so that way we can tell our delegation, nope, this is the number. And I know it's difficult to get that, but I just let you know LFC can come up with a number like that, and the number may or not be correct, and we got to keep our eyes, be the audit that, right, and making sure that it's correct. Can we go to the next slide, or there is, Madam President?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay, so next slide. At this moment, you're receiving, weekly newsletters, the biweekly reports. You will start receiving legislative reports, tracking. There is a lot of information that's going to come up, and what we still need to figure out is when are we going to visit with legislatures? Because in the past we did the legislative forum, and we decided that it would be more effectively we actually go to Santa Fe and visit in person with each legislature and discuss about our capital, our junior bill, and our priorities instead of doing the legislative forum here. That's one thing that needs to be decided. We're still watching if any COVID-19 restrictions will be applying throughout the session. And then one of the things that I think will be very effective, and I'll let you guys thinking about it, is an assigned board member. We can do that by rotating through sessions, but somebody on the board that would take a look in this material that's been sent, and and somebody that I can contact through the session and be available if there is certain things that we can take leverage from a board member in Santa Fe. And so if you can think about that, be a government relations liaison there, where can be my connection for that year, it will be helpful as well, just in case if we need it. So it's just, I don't know if there is anything else that you need, that you want from us as a firm to provide you when it comes to government relations, but for now, this is what we have.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thank you. So as far as having a board member, so I want to make sure that I understand. Are we talking about only one person, or can it possibly be multiple board members that come up at different times?
I'm open if it is multiple. Just let me know. Hey, Chris, this week it's me, so I know that week if I need it, I'll call you or text you, or if I need you up there. I know you have the New Mexico School Board Day that you go up there and then they tell you, hey, go talk to your legislatures. But I don't see a lot of that being very effective. So I just really want to take that opportunity. And when there's things that you can do as a elected official, where you can advocate and help. And if you'd rather switch because I know you have other responsibilities, that's fine. Just letting me know, hey, Chris, this week is going to be, Mr. Tripp. Next week is going to be Mr. Morgan, whatever it is. So that way I kind of like, okay, if I need it, I can contact you guys. Just something to think about it.
Okay, yes.
President, so if you two of you go, that should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
More than two, it's really notice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One is okay.
All right. Yeah, no, definitely. So, well, who's interested? So I love going up there. It's actually, I enjoy that. And I tend to have time since I teach very early in the morning. But are there others who are interested? I know Noreen Scott is interested in doing that as well. Are there other board members who are interested in doing that? And we can kind of look at that then and kind of try to schedule that out or come up with things. So is there anyone else who's interested based on their time and everything else that you have going on?
Usually what
You
we've
are?
done in the
Okay.
past is work through Beth.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a need, and then she says, we need somebody up here to do this. Sometimes it's board, sometimes it's one of the administrative staff. Here's the challenge, and that's what makes it difficult to do, is when the need arises, you don't know it a week in advance.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it's in committee and it's coming up
Yes.
tomorrow and you've got to get up there at that point in time. So what we can do is simply, if those of you that are interested in doing it, we can call and say, are you available?
Yeah.
But it is really frustrating. And then the other that's frustrating is the legislative time. And so it's at 8:00 and you're still sitting there at 2:00 and the item has still not come up, and you're waiting and waiting. So legislative time is a little different than others. So, I just want, you can go up for general things, but often when the bills come up and they're wanting that voice, there's not much lead time. So I just want people to be aware of that. And sometimes we're able to drop things and go, and sometimes we're not, but.
And I probably, just to add, I probably would need, my suggestion comes, and I appreciate the point, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, about it'll be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning from 8 to 10. That's when education committees hearings are happening. So just something to think about. I don't need the answer right now.
Okay.
You guys can think and that possibility if you want to engage.
Okay. So it's good. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Do you have any more slides, Chris, or this is?
Next slide, please.
He's like, maybe.
Oh, yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we already discussed about that. So we're going to come back in January to approve the legislative and then the deadline. And then what's the next slide? Beautiful. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Wait. I want to back up.
Do you want to back up?
No, not yet. Okay, let's go back to this one. I just wanted to make a comment, and Beth, I think, would have addressed that. And we have tried everything, and we really want your feedback on what to do. We've tried everything. We've tried the big meeting with legislators, and one or two show up. And so I think the kind of your recommendation and Beth's is to meet with just one or two at a time when it's convenient for them, rather than the dinner. We used to have great attendance at our dinner. We would have a nice dinner and they would come and we would do it all together and really enjoyed those nights. I mean, they were really, really nice. But the last few times we've tried it, people have such busy lives and they have other things going on. We never could get but one or two. We put out quite a bit of time and energy for a big dinner that a lot of people couldn't come to. So I think our thinking right now is to do the smaller, but if you have any thoughts or want to direct us another way, then, this would be a good time for you to let us know that. So I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that we need to talk to them. We've got one issue that's coming up, and I'm trying really hard to get two of those legislators in right now because it has to do with that flow through money through the formula. And I want to be sure they're aware of it, and and I'd like to know what they're thinking in terms of how we might address it.
Their feedback is we have the breakfast or lunch with them. So if a board member comes, it's going to be me or maybe a staff member, and then we can have that agenda, what we're going to discuss with them, and have that scheduled. And then we can target and be more personal. And
So you're saying like a one-on-one would be better?
yes, that's what the feedback from the delegation to me, since what Dr. Cleveland had been saying that. So, and that will happen in January, right before they get really busy.
Yeah. The last one that was really pretty successful for us was with Senator Brand and another of our our delegation members at the time, and we met them in Santa Fe at the beginning of the session, took them out early to breakfast and sat and talked with them. And that worked out pretty
thought it
well
was
as well. And it saved them time because we went to them. And so that's another possibility at the
already up
beginning
there,
of the,
yeah.
they're already there. And we just met early, went to breakfast, and I thought we had a really good meeting with the two of them. So that's another thing is once the session early, that we go up there and meet with just small groups as well. But
And when we could split up and even do some of those things, maybe
we
as
could,
well,
yeah.
if we actually have a lot that are willing to meet with us. Gary, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I think one-on-one is the best thing, but I do just want to put it out there for transparency purposes, we have legislators and we have board members with political affiliations. And I think at sometimes those that may not want you on their team at that time is okay. But they may through Chris, send you on another mission to go see so-and-so in order to get what Rio Rancho needs. And I think we need to be open with the legislators to say, hey, if you don't want Gary Tripp, that's fine. How about, Jeffrey or whatever the case might be? But what do you need Gary Tripp to do in order to get this to succeed for Rio Rancho? And I think that's a transparency discussion that is pretty difficult because we're representing our kids, but we could handle that through a lobbyist, and the lobbyist could say, hey, Gary, can you go see Senator Campos? And we need some northern votes on this one, or whatever the case might be. And I think that's a discussion that needs to be had with our legislators to say, how do we best serve our kids? And then we go from there.
Really quick, David Mann, do you have any thoughts on this? Just really quick. I'm just watching your facial expressions and I just want to, that's what I do. You come up to the microphone really fast just so they can hear you. Here, come up here, David, up to the, I'm sorry. It's just because we stream.
Well, it's obviously you ran to some extent on a party platform, or you have affiliations with parties, and that's clear and that's understood. And I think when you're acting on behalf of the board, as you said, Member Tripp, you are representing the interests of that board. And so I think you should be cautious in how you use your party affiliation, because you do represent the board as a whole when you're acting on behalf of the board and lobbying for certain things. It's a little sticky.
Yeah, well, and so I would say that, we were talking about having some of us go up and represent. And so when we do that, we need to make sure that we are representing the board as a whole, and that the board as a whole, and probably we should put this on as an agenda item, the board as a whole needs to vote, yes, we're okay with Gary or with Noreen or with Amanda going up and talking on our behalf. And you're right, we do have to be careful when we do that. And we can do it, each of us can go and talk to them on our own and do those things, and that's totally fine. But when it comes to some of these big sessions, we do need to make sure if someone's speaking on our behalf that we all are voting for that to be taking place.
Yeah, Madam President, I think you summed it up well. It sort of depends on which hat you're going to wear. If you're going to wear the board hat, then act on behalf of the board. If you're going to wear a private hat, make sure you're clear with whoever you're speaking to. This is in my private role. I'm not acting on behalf of the board, on behalf of a decision that the board has made.
Okay, perfect.
A really good point. And, I do also that I want to lose the point that I think that Gary made. And I think, Chris has done a really good job of that in the past. You do have to reach beyond your own delegation if you really want things to move. And so those personal ties and people up there sometimes can make a big difference. So it is important to be able to, if you have those relationships, to use them, but be very careful in the sense of what you've said, because you are representing the board, or you have to say, this is me personally, this isn't the board. But you don't get things done very easily with just one delegation. It's any big thing that moves. That's why we're talking about this. 3 or 4 districts working together on CTE, because it's a much better chance we're going to get it through if we have more than one district and we have legislators from both parties, and we have, this common goal working together. So, but yeah, thank you for making that comment, because it is important to reach out if we have those relationships, especially if they're in key roles in the legislature.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else further that we need to discuss? Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Have a good night. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. We let Melanie have a little bit of a rest. It's time to come back. No, that one is, it does have an action on there. We do need an action. Do we actually need an action on that? On our, I guess,
Well, it's just
yes. Well, it's discussion and action. So sorry, Melanie. Never
Well,
mind.
it was put on as an action item in case you wanted to take action. I don't know that you have to.
Well, we've already approved the priorities.
Yes.
We voted on it
Mhm.
several weeks ago, so I don't think we should vote again.
I think we are okay. David, we did add those ones from. Yes, you're right.
A motion to include the additions that we discussed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're leaving it to Jessica Tyler to create a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the Rio Rancho Public Schools priorities for the 2023 session of the New Mexico Legislature to include the board's prior priorities as well as the additional priorities from that were brought forth tonight from the administration as discussed earlier.
Noreen Scott, I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, thank you, and a second by Noreen Scott. And Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Yeah, I think I got the motion, so,
Okay.
okay. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler, President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much. And thank you for catching the action on that. I tried to circle them so I don't miss them, but thank you. All right. So for our next item will be to consider the approval. So a discussion and action of the proposed, let's see. So the 24 legislative capital outlay requests, and Melanie Archbeck, our Executive Director of Facilities, will present.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. What you have in front of you is 13 priorities identified and prioritized by cabinet. We can modify them however you see fit. I'll go over each one. Please ask me if you have any questions as we go through. Priority number 1 is New Mexico 528 Zenith Court traffic study at a cost of, and these are estimates, but what we'll be asking for, $250,000. So this is to commission a traffic study. Most likely this will be required once we start the project by the city of Rio Rancho. So this will be an expense that we will have. Are there any questions regarding that one? Do you want at the end? Okay. Priority number 2 is Zenith Court Road Extension or other. So you're seeing that it's unknown. We need to look into this more, but basically we're looking at resolutions or options. So we just need to investigate a little further, but we did want to identify this in order to reconstruct the east side of Zenith Court from a drainage channel into the roadway and to provide for another method or methods for traffic accessing the CTE center to enter and exit the business park area. So there's a little bit more that we need to do, but we definitely wanted to get this as a priority.
I do not support that. So I just want you to know that the superintendent doesn't support that. And I've been very clear in that, but it's up to the board, of course.
So for the second one is the one that you're not supporting. Why is that, Dr. Cleveland? Just out of.
I don't support that. I have real concerns about dumping traffic into Rivers Edge 1. I think I made that pretty clear at the table. I think Board Member Tripp has raised that issue as well. But again, it's the board's decision. So, but I just want you to be very clear. I do not support it.
Okay.
I support the second half of it, but I don't support the other.
And this is number 2, correct? That you're talking about specifically? Okay. Okay.
So for priority 1 and 2, we'll be working with the city. I believe the city is looking towards number 2 as well. For priority number 3 and 4, these are both actually identified on the master plan, the 5-year master plan. So Enchanted Hills and Rio Rancho Elementary, portions of the buildings do not have a fire protection system. So it's to provide fire protection system through the remaining portions so that the entire building is protected. Priority number 5 is middle school security cameras. So it's to purchase and install additional security cameras at the middle school that currently lack coverage. Priority number 6 is an intercom. So it's to purchase and install an equipment at all of our schools, or elementary, middle, all levels, to meet new state requirements for the fire alarm integration. It will be a refresh to correct major safety issues. Priority number 7 is a wireless access point. Oh, I'm not going over the cost. I'm sorry, but it's, you have it. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Wireless access points. So it's to purchase and install 800 access points and cabling infrastructure. Priority number 8 is CTE gunshot detection. So this is something that we've been doing in all of our new facilities as we're building them. This is becoming one of our basic security requirements that we're putting in all our facilities. Priority number 9 is CTE security cameras. This is again is one of our basic features that we're putting, or that we already have in all our facilities. Priority number 10, again, a basic feature that we're putting, it's CTE access control. Priority number 11 is CTE concealed weapon detection system. So this one is, I believe you guys had a presentation on this, to lease and install a concealed weapon detection system in the CTE renovation project. It will be a pilot for RRPS. It is believed that it will contribute tremendously to the extensive security measures and standards that the district provides. Priority number 12 is Cleveland High School scoreboard. It's to replace the original baseball scoreboard, which has become increasingly difficult to read. And our last priority is number 13, Rio Rancho High School scoreboard, and it will replace the original baseball scoreboard from 1997. Would you guys like to reprioritize? Do you have any questions?
I have a question on the security cameras.
Yes.
For CTE, aren't there already pretty sophisticated security cameras in that building?
Sal is not here to. So as we renovate the space, we're going to be providing some that are specific to the new floor plan that we have.
Okay, I also would like to take this opportunity to say that I strongly object to not having that building available till January of 2025. I find that unacceptable, and I really believe that if we focused and put our efforts forward on this, we could be in there by January of 2024, and that was the original date that the board was told months ago. And so I just want to go on record that I find that date unacceptable. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Noreen. I do have my issue with the concealed weapon detection system, which I thought that the presentation was good, but we haven't received a report on the findings of the trip that happened and all of those things. So that's I have a difficulty a little bit of putting that on here and asking for money for it when I just haven't received that information. And I'd be happy to receive that information written, but I would like to have a report to the board. So I have a little bit of an issue with that one, just because we haven't received more information since the trip that was taken from our security and Michael Baker. So go ahead.
I just wanted to make a few comments. Overall, I think all of these priorities or requests align with the initiatives that we set forth as far as our priorities. They all align closely to safety. Going back to item number 2, I believe that Dr. Cleveland said that she doesn't support. I do support that. I think not having more than one point of ingress and egress for a place that's going to have a lot of students coming and going on a daily basis is a safety concern. And so I think just for safety purposes, even if it wasn't a normal traffic pattern, is important to have another way to access that area for that campus. And so I'm in support of all of the identified requests.
I would like to say the second part of that is the way out, would be another way out. I think that the concern that I do have with regards to that is the beneficiary of that will be the charter school, because that's where it is. And I think if they want any traffic relief there, they too should step up and help pay for it and be part of that, because they're the ones that are going to benefit the most from it. It would seem, though, generally, to have another way onto 528 would be the better way to go. And we've been trying since that was Victoria's Secret, to get another way on the other side out onto 528, hopefully with a light. And so I very much support the second part of that. I do have concerns about dumping all that traffic into an established neighborhood where I think that folks will not be very appreciative of that. I think we're already going to have a lot of overflow with students parking over there, but maybe not. I guess, we've seen it at Rio Rancho High. We've had just an ongoing battle for years with people parking in Loma, Colorado, in front of people's houses, blocking their driveways. It's been an ongoing battle with that neighborhood. And I don't mean that in the sense of being anti the neighborhood. I think they've had very legitimate concerns about it. And so it's, the other is, just the amount of traffic that will put out onto Corrales Road and the amount of traffic that comes into Rio Rancho from Corrales Road. It may be very difficult for people to pull across that road. But anyway, I certainly understand and respect your opinion, but I really don't think that we have looked at that in any detail to make that a priority at this point.
I have to agree. I think we should remove the Zenith Court Road extension because the price is unknown. And I don't think you should go before the legislature or request legislative money when you don't even know how much it is. Plus, I think it's the city's responsibility to do that. So I don't think that should be one of our priorities. That's my opinion.
Other thoughts on number 2? Go ahead, Gary Tripp.
My thought on 1 and 2 is my research and my understanding is a traffic study is about $57,000. And when I did my research, I didn't get it at 250,000. But my thought is to go to the legislature once we know what the answer to number 1 is to go back next year with number 2. Okay.
May I explain a bit of the process?
That number came from Secretary Cerna.
Okay.
And so that's where the number came from. And I wish Lauren was here, but Lauren said what he thinks that amount probably is, but he doesn't know, but he worked for DOT. He thinks that what they're wanting to do, which might or might not be necessary, he thinks they're doing the study from Obregon, Corrales Road up through where that second light might be. And that's what's going to drive the cost up. And it's because Corrales Road and Obregon are so close. If you drive over there a lot, I live there, so I drive that area quite a bit. As you come up from Corrales Road, you have Speedway, the service station, and then you have another little jump before you go into Tap and Taco and the new marijuana place. And then just right jump after that is the turn into Zenith. And the concern is that it's going to back up on that road as people are turning into the CPE center. And we're going to have cars and buses and things backed up through the road on 528 blocking that. And then, of course, the other challenge with it is the traffic coming out of Obregon from Enchanted Hills, which is already not good. So but he thinks what they're doing, Board Member Tripp, is they're doing the study from Obregon, Corrales Road all the way down, which would be the only reason he thinks that it could even possibly be that much. But even then he thought it was high. But I do want you to know where the number came from. It came from the secretary.
Did you want to add, Melanie?
Yes, just a little bit to the process. So what happens is this will go to the legislators, right? If they approve it, we'll get contracts in July. And so I can't actually, because you said we can just find out the number and then go from there. It's quite a process. It's fantastic that we get them in.
From one legislative session to the other.
Oh, for the following year? Okay.
The process I understand. I meant this legislative session, you ask this question. Next legislative section, you have an answer to that question. So now you go with another request.
Yeah, okay. Do we have enough time, right? Since we are taking time, do we have enough time to?
Yes, I thought he meant from this year to next year, because I can't actually spend the money or even issue a PO until it's approved at the state level. So we get the contracts, the money, and then I'll get approval and can't actually move forward on it until I have approval. So I thought you meant, excuse me, for next year.
And then I just wanted to see if we could, my recommendation would be to put 12 and 13 together, that scoreboards for 2 schools. Just don't want the public to see that Cleveland scoreboard is before Rio Rancho scoreboard.
That is a good idea.
Trust me, both those baseball scoreboards are really in sorry shape.
Well, and it would be good for them if they're going to get funded, that both of them get funded. So yeah, Melanie.
And then on priority number 2, if you guys do decide to keep it, I actually wouldn't enter it into the system until we had a better idea of a number. I wouldn't enter unknown.
Okay.
I have, I believe, until July 12th. So my intent is with whatever is decided tonight, I'll put everything in tomorrow, but that one will be pending until we can look at it a little closer for a number.
Yeah. You know, my issue is something has to be changed there because you're gonna have kids going, you know, it's not big enough for people. So then you're gonna have kids trying to turn onto that street and running into each other. So we don't want that, but yet we don't also, I think, want it to be necessarily the main entrance into
I very
the
much
area. Yeah.
agree with you. And
Yeah.
with,
So something does
Board
need to
Member
change with it.
Tyler, one way
Yeah.
in and one way out is not acceptable.
Yeah.
So the key is to what is the best option. But that one way out, you've seen it all over the district. I mean, you look at what it was for years at MLK. Nightmare, one way in, one way out, backs up all the way to Southern. And so, yeah, I think that one way in and out is not acceptable. Question is, what's the best way to resolve that?
Would that be more of a design challenge that we're aware of the issue, so we look at it when we design?
Yeah. I mean, I think we can leave it on as far as knowing that we do not want to cause a traffic jam in Rivers Edge 1 and onto 528 and onto Corrales Road. But knowing that we do need to make some sort of change there, I don't know exactly what it is.
Well, and it seems to me that it needs to be a partnership with the city because it's a city street.
Very much.
And
Both
it's
1 and
not on
2.
our property. So we need to have a clearer picture because we're not the only ones that are going to use that in and out.
1 and 2 will definitely be a partnership with the city.
Okay. So as far as leaving it on, do we want to leave it on and let Melanie look as far as the money, or do we want to pull it off completely? It does need a change. It is going to go ahead, Mike.
If I may, and maybe the language.
Mike, come to the mic, please.
Come to the microphone.
Maybe that the language is not very clear, but without actually having a traffic study, we don't know the answer. So it says and or. So the first part of it is to basically redo the drainage channel. Maybe that's not the answer. Maybe the answer is to just cut that off. And maybe the other answer is to take a separate roadway and to go to the north side of the property. I don't know what the answer is, but somebody who, a traffic engineer would have a better indication. So, maybe, that could be reworded to maybe better reflect that, but I thought the and or kind of covered it because I don't have the answer to that.
Well, and could we even just put the implementation of the court traffic study, but still then it's hard to come up with a concrete number of what we need, if that makes sense. So this would be the implementation of that traffic study or partially of that study. So I don't know if there's a way to put that in there, but I don't know if we do that, then I don't know how we come up with a specific number to give to our legislators. Okay. So can we put?
Well, I think if Secretary Cerna said that's what it's going to cost.
Well,
I think
that's
start with
for
that.
sure for number 1. I just mean for number 2, we're looking for money to implement that traffic study, right? So it's not the 250; it's the money that we need to implement.
Maybe instead of unknown, put undetermined or to be determined based off.
Well, she's still going to look into it.
Yeah,
before
no,
she
we will put a number in there. We just
Yeah.
need a little bit more time to determine what that number is going to be.
Yeah.
So we simply say to
money for
to construct another exit or to find another egress for the site. And leave it open as to what that might be. I don't know. I mean, that would be just simply say the need for a second exit off of that property.
And I think that actually would be good. I mean, if you're thinking about some of our legislators and where they live, if they see maybe some of these specifics, they might have the same concerns that Dr. Cleveland's having. And so we might want to leave that open a little bit, still looking for the same goal, but if they have that same sort of concern, perhaps
I
Representative
think they will hear from a
Cowdrell.
good number of people,
Yeah.
whoever says one, whoever represents them, I think will hear that.
So perhaps we would have a better chance at receiving that money from our representatives if we just changed the way that we have it worded.
Yeah, so we will amend the language a little bit, and we will put an actual dollar amount in that.
Because it is important. We will need money and help with doing that.
Yes.
And so I think it's important for it to be on there. Board thoughts, comments? Okay. From any of the other numbers or anything else that needs to change? So
Yeah,
we're looking.
if I may go back
Mhm.
to your comment about the concealed carry. I
Thank
think
you.
we can take that off.
Okay.
That's not an issue. That we're trying to develop some pretty specific information on the engineering of Evolve, which we have recently received, but we still have to evaluate it. So we'll be coming back to the school board, I hope next month, to give a detailed analysis of the system, how it would work, what the infrastructure cost would be, and what the day-to-day cost would be as well.
Okay. So you're comfortable if we pulled that one.
Yes.
So 11 we'd pull off. Okay. So 11 pull off, 12 and 13 would be combined, and number 2 reworded just to implement our traffic control plan. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Everyone's tired. I can see your faces. Your eyes are starting to. I think we're.
It's been a long day.
Okay, so this is an action. If there's someone who's willing to make a motion on this. You want me to do it?
Madam
I can always do
President,
it.
I will make a motion to have staff amend the proposed fiscal year 24 legislative capital outlay requests by rewording and providing a dollar amount for item number 2 and removing item
11.
number 11 and combining items 12 and 13 into one request.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay.
Well said, by the way.
All right, we have a motion.
Amazingly said, actually.
I know. We have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeff Morgan. And Kim, if you could take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for sticking with us. So advanced planning, just since as we're in advanced planning, just a quick back to that consent as we're thinking about our next meetings. As we have questions on the consent, try to, on our end, try to get those out before the meeting if you can. And then district staff, also make sure you look over the consent. And so if we do have questions that do come up in the meeting, that we can get those answered.
We'll
We'd
try to
appreciate
figure
that.
that out.
Yeah, no, that
I'm
would be
sorry,
good.
I don't even know.
Yeah, well, the problem is when we don't pass the consent,
But
it
in the
causes
future,
us
you
issues.
can remove that one item
Yeah.
and approve the rest of the consent.
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to do it, and then discuss that item.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it did fail, so.
I know, sorry. I was okay with it. So. Why don't you just send it to us at this point since we've moved on? They are correct. We should have removed that one item and put it into business, and we'll be better with that in the future.
You want it
So,
now? No. Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, we didn't remove it from the one. So,
We did the
okay.
consent agenda, so-
Okay. So if you would send that out though to us, just have someone send that out to us. So December 19th through the 20th, we have final exams. December 20th, hopefully some of you can make it. Independence High School winter graduation. It will be at Cleveland High School. December 21st will be a half day for students and a test makeup day. The 22nd through the 4th will be winter break. The 5th will be a staff in-service day, and the 6th will be classes resumed for all of our students. There is also on the 6th, there'll be an honor band all-state concert if you're able to go to that. It'll be at Pope Joy at UNM. On the 9th will be our next meeting that we will have in the new year. And also in that meeting, we will be doing new appointments and voting for new members for our leadership. And the 16th, Martin Luther King Day. And then the 20th, Sandoval County Rio Rancho District Spelling Bee, which is always so fun. And Kim usually puts that together for us.
Yeah, it'll be in this room. It'll be at 9:30 in the morning. We now have a time. And I did want to pass along to you also that you might want to start thinking about the Board Institute, which is in Santa Fe. It's February 2nd through 4th, I believe.
Thank you.
But we'll probably need to know at the next meeting if any of you plan to attend so we can get you registered and accommodated and all that stuff.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our meeting for tonight's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.